Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite you all to please remain seated as the President of Sri Lanka will be coming now. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and digital visionaries from around the globe, today we are set to embark on a journey through the realms of digital public infrastructure, co-organized by the esteemed High Commission of India in Colombo and the visionary Ministry of Technology, Government of Sri Lanka. In an era where digital technology shapes the very fabric of our societies, this conference will delve into the transformative potential of digital public infrastructure. As we settle into the rhythm of today's sessions, together, let us envision and shape a future that is enabled, empowered, and enriched by the digital infrastructure that connects us all. As we gather in the spirit of innovation and collaboration, please direct your attention to the stage as we request the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Santosh Shah, for welcome remarks. Let us all give him a warm welcome.
Your Excellency, Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe, President of Sri Lanka, Honorable Ministers, Members of Parliament, distinguished panelists from India and Sri Lanka, members of business, academia, and media, those joining us on the web through the digital medium, ladies and gentlemen, namaskar, ayubovan, vanakkam. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this conference on digital public infrastructure with a theme of enable, empower, and enrich. At the outset, let me thank His Excellency, the President, Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe, for joining us today. I'd also like to thank Honorable State Minister of Technology, Mr. Kanaka Herath, and his team for partnering with us and making this event happen. The conference sessions will explore the transformative potential of digital public infrastructure, or DPI, for enabling service delivery, empowering communities by fostering inclusivity, and enriching the economy by driving innovation. India's own journey stands as a testimony to the power of DPI. The digital transformation in India over the last decade or so has been driven by these interoperable and open protocols of DPI. India's DPI journey started with a basic need to provide direct access to public services and government benefits to our citizens. This is what gave the birth to India's digital identity number, or Aadhaar, and the unique identification authority of India in 2016. This became the foundational building block of DPI, and the magic began. At the heart of this magic is what we call the India Stack, government-backed APIs, or application programming interfaces, upon which third parties can build software with access to government IDs, payment networks, and data. The digital infrastructure is interoperable and stacked together, meaning that private companies can build apps integrated with state services to provide consumers with seamless access to everything from welfare payments to loan applications and making investments. Probably, even the architects of Aadhaar didn't envisage that India was on a path to finding a world-beating solution for building out and regulating the online commons that is more equitable than the laissez-faire approach, more transparent and more innovative than some of the regulation-heavy models. Today, Aadhaar covers more than 1.3 billion of our people. We have used the power of the JAM Trinity, Jan Dhan bank accounts, Aadhaar, and mobile to revolutionize financial inclusion in India. The scale, speed, and scope of this transformation is beyond imagination. First, it has enabled social welfare systems at a scale that is unprecedented. It has allowed the government to make 450 million direct cash transfers or transfer food rations to 850 million to the poor and underprivileged, directly and in full transparency. Direct benefits transfer of government support is also plugging leakages and has saved over 33 billion US dollars. Second, Aadhaar and the associated DPI has also improved ease of living for the citizens by making it easy to avail of government services, whose delivery has improved remarkably and again fostered transparency and removed possibilities of corrupt practices. For example, fully digitized taxation systems are promoting transparency and e-governance. In other words, by leveraging technology, we have been able to transform governance and have made it more efficient, inclusive, faster, and transparent. Another dimension of the DPI, and my third point, is about how it has transformed innovation and enterprise in India. Every month, nearly 10 billion transactions take place on UPI, our instant payment system. More than 45% of the global real-time payments happen in India. The CoWIN portal supported India's COVID vaccination drive. It helped in the delivery of over 2 billion vaccine doses, along with digitally verifiable certificates. There are currently 122,000 startups in India with 113 unicorns, increasing number of jobs from approximately 40,000 in the sector in 2014 to 1.3 million jobs in 2024. The Open Network for Digital Commerce is also democratizing e-commerce. At the recently concluded G20 presidency of India, emerged the first ever global definition of DPI in the G20 New Delhi's Leaders' Declaration. According to that, it is a set of shared digital systems that are secure and interoperable, built on open technologies to deliver equitable access to public and/or private services at a societal scale. The Indian G20 presidency brought about a mind shift in a way and outlined the holistic development that can potentially be brought about by a good DPI. The Indian presidency also proposed the creation of the One Future Alliance, a voluntary initiative that aims to bring together governments, the private sector, academic and research institutions, donor agencies, civil society organizations, and other relevant stakeholders and existing mechanisms to synergize global efforts in the DPI ecosystem. We also see DPI now in our bilateral joint statements, as also in the India-Sri Lanka vision document adopted by our leaders during the visit of His Excellency President Ranil Wickremesinghe to India in July 2023. Both our leaders then agreed to leverage India's DPI in accordance with Sri Lanka's requirements and priorities towards effective and efficient delivery of citizen-centric services to the people of Sri Lanka. We have already rolled out the UPI in Sri Lanka last month, and we are now working with the government of Sri Lanka to roll out the unique digital identity project based on MOSIP architecture. And we strongly believe that, as in the case of India, this UDI is not an end, rather the beginning of the digital magic for Sri Lanka. The value proposition of DPI is the combination of three components: technology, governance, and markets, to achieve sustainable and robust digital transformation. It is not about one-off technology solutions, but about incorporating a wider theory of change that brings about digitization across domains. This is the very premise of this conference. In the two panels today, the first one on accelerating digital Sri Lanka, we will focus on governance and service delivery, while the second panel on unlocking the digital stack, we will take the conversation beyond foundational DPI to discuss the benefits of DPI in the entrepreneurial space and economy. I extend my heartiest welcome and gratitude to all the experts from India who have traveled for the conference today. We have several senior representatives from all relevant agencies in India, including the co-chair of Center for Digital Public Infrastructure and ex-chief architect UIDAI, Dr. Pramod Verma, Joint Secretary looking at Startup India, Mr. Sanjeev, and his Startup India team, Director Mr. Rajesh Kumar from our Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, CEO of IT Madras Incubator, Parvatak, Dr. Raman, the MOSIP country implementation team, headed by Mr. Krishnan Rajagopalan, as well as representing the IT industry in India, we have the chairperson of NASSCOM, Mr. Nabibiar. The fact that they are all present here in person demonstrates the belief in the potential of DPI to bring developmental dividends to Sri Lanka. Let me also welcome our speakers from Sri Lanka, especially Honorable State Minister Kanaka Herath and Honorable MP Harsha De Silva, who will open the two panels and set the stage for the conversation. Secretary, Ministry of Technology, Dr. Dharmshri Kumar Tunga, Dr. Hans Vijay Surya, who is joining us virtually, Mr. Fadhil Bakir Markar of UNDP, Mr. Ruendo Perez, MD Stax Colombo, PICME CEO, Mr. Jeffrey Jalfer, who is there are also representatives of Slashcom, and Mr. Sujiva Mudalige. I welcome you all to the conference. I hope that the sessions today will ignite ideas propelling Sri Lanka to embrace DPI as a catalyst of growth, inclusivity, and citizens' welfare. I now have the privilege of welcoming Dr. Pramod Verma to deliver his presentation on DPI and India Stack. Thereafter, we would have the honor of listening to the keynote address by His Excellency President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Excellency, sir, your vision and your commitment for a digital Sri Lanka will be of immense value to the path forward for DPI in Sri Lanka, as well as on our bilateral cooperation in this regard. Without further ado, I request Dr. Pramod Verma to take the floor. Thank you.
Is that on? Yeah, thank you. Can you put up the presentation? Good morning, everyone. My throat is actually not so good, so I'm hoping that I don't have to shout. Is it okay, right? Voice, yeah. Good morning, Excellency President, honorable ministers, all the officials, and of course the community of people who believe in transforming the society, wanting to look at how that could be done. And I'm really privileged to be here sharing India's experience. I have about 15 minutes or so I'm going to rush through because India has done much beyond identity. And it is interesting to see how the digital transformation kept coming up in India. And much of that is in the open source. So I think that should allow many countries, including Sri Lanka, to adopt a variant of it or adopt the principles of it and so on. India, this is interesting to understand. India is complex, diverse, as you know, most populous nation on earth. In 2009 is when we started the ID project. 2008, India was the least banked, one of the least banked countries in the world. And that was, remember, in 2008, we already had smartphones. We already had launched iPhone. We had already launched Android. Commercial internet was 15-year-old, and India was struggling to open bank accounts for the people, the basic financial inclusion. And that's not a good situation to be in. At the same time, India also is quite similar to Sri Lanka. We have a lot of subsidies, and subsidy program during 2008-9 amounted to about $50 billion US. And it's hard to provide subsidies to people when you don't know who they are and there's no bank account for the people. So it's expected conservatively that it was 20 to 40% leakage, and you can imagine, in a complex society like India, it would be even bigger, right? And it was important, and it was amounting to 2.5% of the GDP then. So it was not a small number for us to be able to fix it. But what is interesting, and this is a study from 2020, December, 10 years later. December study from Bureau of International Settlements, BIS in Basel, that studied our India's economic or banking penetration. And they were surprised that India, according to them, should have taken 50 years, 5 decades, to actually reach 80% of banking inclusion. That means 2060, we would have been still opening bank accounts. But what happened in India is about 7.5, 8 years. So we compressed the development cycle that is traditionally needed through digital intervention and compressed that time. And less than a decade later, we had near inclusive bank account. And even better, that it was actually the gender parity in accounts and identity was achieved. Women had the least identity. They didn't have any documents in their proof, so they had no identity, and of course they had no bank account, and it was very hard, and the parity was way out of whack, and it was important. And the two, in addition to the technology intervention, the DPI intervention, as we call DPI now, it was also policy intervention. Our central bank stood up and said it is okay to open what they call no-frill bank accounts, which had no checkbook or an ATM card attached to it. But, people could save money. So that's a policy intervention. And, of course, Prime Minister put his weight behind it, called a Jan Dhan, and nearly 510 million new bank accounts were opened. And out of that, 60% is women. So it's a very, very interesting gender parity achievement that India managed. And at the same time, this is important, India in that last decade also laid the world's largest direct benefits transfer rails. Just the rails. So it's a digital rail that allow any entity, typically government entity, it could be CSR, by the way, it could be any entity wanting to send directly money to the people to be able to do so with fraction of a rupee. That means the cost of moving money plummeted in India. And about 1,300 programs, 300 federal programs, central program, and about 1,000 state programs are now doing what's called direct benefits transfer. And the best part is that the identity project, India Stack, as he talked about, India Stack, the entire cost to the government, interestingly, is in a couple of $1 billion, $2.5 billion. It's actually nothing in the last 15 years. But the savings just from the central program, direct benefits transfer, it's about $34 billion as we close this year. So ROI is very, very clear. And this is even more of a topic today with climate resilience being talked about. So I speak with many countries around the world. And climate resilience also necessitates both money and goods to be given to people at the time of crisis. And at the time of crisis, you can't wake up. So you need to lay the foundations or the rails thereof so that you can get resilience, which is why during COVID, we were able to use the same infrastructure and actually move money, right? That's very, very important. And it all began with our ID project. Although ID project, in the India Stack, all the pieces of the puzzle are not directly linked, by the way. They are not closely linked. It's a misnotion or misunderstanding that everything is built on Aadhaar. Actually, everything is not built on Aadhaar. They're all loosely coupled, as we call it, building blocks. But together, it achieves combinatorial possibility. And that's why it's interesting. Started with ID, and best part about ID was that it was kept as non-citizens. It was for all residents of India. So we did not mix citizenship into it. We did not use that as security apparatus. We rather use that as an empowerment apparatus. So it was kept under originally called Planning Commission. Now subsequently became an authority under the law. It's a Unique Identification Authority of India. And that's an interesting thing. Because if you want people to use it and trust it and derive benefits, you have to design for the people, not for the system, for the people. And it was also extremely minimalistic. It had 4 attributes, nothing more. Name, date of birth, gender, address, and 2 biometrics, and we were able to actually give. And the simplicity of that system, I believe as a chief architect, the simplicity of Aadhaar was the essence of its success. And simplicity and neutrality of it. It had no connotation. By the way, this is one of the world's first identity system that had no entitlement at all attached to it. So, including my father would ask, why would I want to get this ID if it comes with nothing? No guarantees whatsoever. In fact, that was the success. Success of Aadhaar, that it was a neutral, just an identity. It just says who you claim to be. It can validate, right? And today, every day, it's about 70, 80 million authentication. Today, we already done 110 billion authentication, very widely used, right? But interestingly, the same authentication and electronic KYC this is the advantage of designing as an independent, reusable block. When it's reusable, you get to reuse it beyond what was originally designed for. Like GPS, like internet. Nobody would imagine that we would be watching a streaming movie today or, order food, because they were all combinatorial later, right? It was not designed for it. So when you design it as a reusable, it also came in handy for telecom, and that was a telecom revolution. India has the cheapest data plans in the world and so on. And also brought, last month's report says, rural India users are more internet connected than urban India, and women and men population connected to internet is now half-half. So it's brilliant. Smartphone, still gender parity is not yet achieved, and gender parity is not achieved for many other things, but at least for the core things we are starting to address. Okay? Okay, so sorry, yeah. We also launched something very interesting in 2014. We started designing in 2015, before 1 year into Prime Minister Modi's first term. He launched something called Digital India. Under that, he brought something called digital credentialing infrastructure. That was quite ahead of the curve, if you look at it. What did we say? The cost of paper and cost of trust that you show certificate, academic certificate, income certificate, marriage certificate, birth certificate, company employment certificate, trade licenses, and so on, constantly to avail various services. But none of the certificates are verifiable. It can be faked so easy that doesn't even make sense. So the problem, though, developing nation like all of us, the problem is that only the upper part of the society gets everything, and the lower part of the society, much of the pyramid, they don't trust anyone. So you start with zero trust, and they have to keep on earning that trust by, not by proof of skill or proof of earning or proof of work and so on. So idea was to credentialize verifiably, digital credentials, as you call it. And I know Sri Lanka has some project, early pilots we did, and it will be lovely to see this project as well. And today it's extremely well accepted. And then in 2016, as he said, we launched our payment. Think about it. We did identity, credential, and then payment. And payment, UPI, we did 12.5 billion transaction. It's about, very interestingly, UPI started in 2014 again, and it's about a 1.5-page document. I keep saying this, that so simplicity of UPI is again its success of UPI. And it's quite fast because credit cards were not available. 22 million credit cards India had, by the way. Very little. Point of sale machines were not there, so it was important that we do this. Very important to understand. UPI, people mistake a lot of places UPI being a smartphone app. UPI is not a smartphone app. UPI is a rail that moves instantly money from one stored value to another stored value at 1/700th of a dollar cost. Very, very cheap. Near free, like bytes moving on the internet. But it's designed as inclusive. We have UPI on feature phone. We have UPI used by about 300 million transactions every month by people who do not have any phone at all. They use India Post and other business correspondents use their fingerprint to transact. That Aadhaar is leveraged there for authentication, but the money pipe is UPI. So Aadhaar and UPI coming together to create that inclusion. It's very, very interesting. And then, of course, we are digitizing businesses as well. Why is it again? We have a long tail of SMEs, small, medium businesses, and nano enterprises. Much of India is that actually, is not large companies. So the problem was that only large companies could digitize, only large companies could get lending, only large companies could get through the system, and much of the trade was informal, inefficient, massive asymmetry. So this, interestingly, this came about as a sort of result of our tax reform. Our tax reform forced all our electronic invoices to be digital. And that's a very interesting thing. And we also have a national toll collection system. By the way, our national toll collection system, anywhere in the country, when the cars go through or vehicles go through, it uses UPI. To charge money, move money from your car's wallet, to the, the gate, the merchant who is operating the gate. Very, very interestingly, same UPI was leveraged even for FASTag, as called FASTag in India. But the best part is that it is actually quite popular now because it creates significant efficiency in our logistics and saves money. And then we did data protection. Now data protection bill has come through. But in between 2016, we started that seminal work that said everyone must own their data. Because Nandan Nilekani, who is sort of the father of a lot of these digital initiatives, thought leader, said Indians will be data rich before they are economically rich. And that statement was very powerful to imagine. We are going to leave a lot of digital footprints as individual and SMEs in the country and who don't have economic. Can we use that data? Can we use our data to create a virtuous cycle in our business or in our personal journeys and create opportunity for you to prove who you are? And that's what Account Aggregator Network is about. And all this best part, look at the private ecosystem, startup ecosystem. Hundreds of startups are programming. As he said, it's all programming APIs. DigiLocker is an API. UPI is an API. Aadhaar uses APIs. GST, our tax collection system, uses API. All our APIs, why is it useful? It's not about government. Government cannot solve. They can create impetus and also address, inequity or anti-competitive issues or inclusion, special drives and so on. But otherwise, the market should drive inclusion. The idea was that through DPI thinking, can we reduce the cost of solutioning, reduce the cost of inclusion, reduce the cost of, and increase the market size. And that's why a lot of fintechs are playing in India, right? All of them. And that's why the first time in India, first time ever in India, we are able to do literally $2, $5 lending, which was unimaginable one time ago. Completely paperless, presence-less, including digital signature, near real time using my footprints, proving who I am and what I do, and underwriting. Fintechs and lenders are being underwriting this. This is a very, very powerful imagination. None of these were imagined up front. This is the power of infrastructure. When you build reusable building block, all kinds of new possibilities emerge. And then, of course, we are not limiting to financial. We are doing what's called ABDM, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, which is our digital health stack in one sense, and of course, education stack, both thriving, because both are much to be improved in India. We have not even solved those problems yet, primary care, school education, opportunities, and so on. But we are starting to lay the infrastructure that is necessary for us to do so. And India is also opening up, and we have subsequent panel experts here as well, opening up what we call a digital economy. Now, what did we do so far? Is identity, payments, credentials, and data. They all enable trust layers and payment layer. They don't enable market access. They don't enable market access. And that's what India is reimagining. Why is it so? India, as you know, is extremely fragmented. All industry, Amazon, with all its might, only has about 8% penetration in B2C. That means 90+% of the people just shop outside B2C. Right? Everything is fragmented. And every other industry is completely fragmented. Jobs, horrible. Blue collar. I mean, we are all privileged. White collar. I'm talking about blue collar and gray collar, right? How do we address this fragmentation? There are two models. One model world has shown us, called aggregation model. That means you build a platform, two-sided platform, Uber, Amazon, Airbnb, you imagine they're all two-sided platforms. You can keep doing that. But India sees, even with these platforms, we have only a small percentage of India that is coming into the digital economy. A large portion of India is not participating in digital economy. So India is reimagining this possibility from moving from a platform-centric, what's called a closed-loop platform-centric model, to an open-loop network thinking model. Audacious thinking. As audacious as internet. Internet is decentralized, open-loop, powered by protocols. And our networks, commerce networks, as powered by protocols and standards. Extremely powerful imagination. And you can imagine your peer-to-peer mobility and so on, which is what we did first in Bengaluru. If you come, we began there. We have something called Nammayatri, and we have in Kochi, various cities in India now starting. And we, by the way, this is actually catching fire in Europe. We have in Brazil, and we have in Africa, Gambia, for example, a project that is doing. Why is it key? Because it's completely open source. And what is the purpose? If you have a smartphone, if the driver has a smartphone, if you have a smartphone, if they are internet connected, and if you are internet connected, you should be able to discover them. Why do you need a powerful intermediary that is extracting high commission? Can we decentralize a lot more? Decentralization is happening everywhere, okay? So it's a trend you can't stop. So we are actually pushing that agenda forward. And the best part was that in 1 year, 1.5 years, the Bangalore's network did about $55 million earning to the drivers, the auto rickshaw drivers. And we have about 130,000 rides every day. It's just, because drivers love it. It's peer-to-peer. And I get to keep all the money. It's perfect, right? And it's amazing how startups are creating SaaS models. an all-you-can-eat kind of model, a non-commission model to actually sustain this. And we have a larger effort bringing all these things, and we have a person who drives ONDC called Open Network for Digital Commerce. It's a not-for-profit entity facilitating, not controlling, not regulating, but facilitating a very large ecosystem of a multi-domain, multi-platform commerce network. Ambitious. We just began, and it'll take 10 years maybe. We have a good story. But if you don't do this, you will not have equitable economy opportunity. It's very, very clear. So it's a necessity, not sufficient. It's necessary that we lay the foundations for it. And again, you can see 1,000+ companies, VC-funded companies, playing into these APIs, creating new possibilities of artisans being able to sell directly to customers, or self-help groups, women self-help groups, making pickles and so on, directly now getting market access with low commission or easy to subscribe models, because they have a choice to be connected to the grid. It's no more a platform story. And we are supercharging that with India's language conundrum is huge. As you know, 22 official languages, but Bangalore speaks 106 languages. We are just crazy. And we have lots of languages, and that actually, the problem with that is that language is a barrier to transact. It's not a barrier as much to watch YouTube, but it is a barrier because typing is not native, English is not native, and we are supercharging Ministry of IT. We have officers from Ministry of IT as well, is supercharging through a mission called Bhashini. Democratizing data sets, language data sets, democratizing compute and democratizing models, and then telling the startups, government is not writing apps, by the way. Government is laying the foundations to say, now you as a startup should be able to embed language interfaces faster, cheaper, and please do. Because if you don't do, you can't expand the market. As simple as that. And this is the difference. I'll end with that. This is how we used to be. Government did everything, including operating, laying the road, running the bus, operating the bus. I mean, literally, right? Everything. And this is one model. Nobody wants to go there, I think. But other model, which we know, is to outsource everything to private industry. But that has its own problem, because it creates walled gardens, closed loops, non-interoperable, and creates extracting nature of the systems very sooner or later. And that's why this DPI thinking is walking in the middle, where you lay the foundations that are interoperable, the digital fabric that are interoperable, powered by standards and protocols. But don't try writing apps. Government is not writing apps. Market is encouraged on top of that to build diverse solutions that actually caters to 1 billion people. And that's very, very key for us. And that's why our startups ecosystem is anyway bouncing, and they're all leveraging fintechs, health techs, and so on. And it's important that India calls it jugalbandi, that jazz, the coordination between public rail, private innovation. It's a beautiful combination if you actually pull this through. And that's what India is trying to do. And that's no different from what we saw in the earlier days. The countries build physical infrastructure without blinking, because you have to lay the infrastructure. But when it came to digital, we sort of kept, after internet, we stopped doing anything and said, I don't know. It is important that countries also look at digital highways or digital infrastructure that spurs the economic growth and equity, opportunity, and level playing ground for your own ecosystem. And that's what we think it's exponential in nature, which is why you saw 7.5 years UPI, 7.5 years, compressing timeline to get bank account. These are not because government kept opening bank account. It is because the combinatorial nature of the whole thing. And that's the beauty of infrastructure thinking. So I encourage all of you to think about that, and we'd love to see Sri Lanka progress. You already have fantastic projects going on. So thank you so much. Have a good day. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Pramod Varma, for your insightful presentation. We now arrive at a pivotal moment of our conference, a segment that stands as a testament to the importance of today's gathering. It is with great honor that we welcome to the stage a distinguished leader and an advocate for digital progress, the President of Sri Lanka, His Excellency Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Your Excellency, the High Commissioner, Honorable the Ministers, Honorable the Members of Parliament, distinguished guests and delegates. There's very little that I can add to after listening both to Santosh and to Dr. Varma. So I will only state here that you are holding this conference at a very apt moment, at a time when Sri Lanka government has decided the path beyond economic stabilization. I won't go into the details of what we have suffered or what took place somewhat in front of this hotel, but certainly we have now reached a stage where we can confidently claim to have stabilized the economy. We've come to those agreements with the IMF, and we are talking to the OCC, the Official Creditor Committee, to China, and to the private creditors. Where do we go from there? We have stabilized an economy which is import dependent. You can't go on forever with the import dependent economy. Therefore, we've made our decisions, and I want to present it to Parliament in the form of legislation. The economic transformation. To begin with, the economic transformation will be firstly to an export-oriented, highly competitive digital economy, to a green economy. Then we will set out the targets and the years of achievement and send it to Parliament. And certainly by early May, you will have it before you in the Public Finance Committee. But since we have now decided what course we are taking, to have this discussion at the start of what should be a digital economy certainly is for us quite useful. Sri Lanka has had what I call a patchwork economy. You take pieces together and then sew it together. So now we are trying to move this out into what we should. And the whole issue, I won't discuss others, is one of digital, how do we go into a digital economy? So that we've left to my state minister, the secretary and others to work out parameters of this economy. How do we digitalize? So a discussion on the digital public infrastructure certainly is useful at this stage. Firstly, we are now discussing the new institutional framework for a digital economy. We've been having IT councils and computer and information technology. We've had others, but none of them really delivered the results. And it was a question of looking at micro projects and technical advances. So we are moving out of that. To build a digital economy, we are going into a digital transformation agency. The total transformation of digital economy and together with that, the technical and the technological know-how that goes with it. So that is the first part. Within it, there's also going to be another center called the AI Center, because digital transformation, after debate we decided that digital transformation must go hand in hand with artificial intelligence. They should not be separate. There should be an autonomous institution under the Digital Transformation Agency. This year we have set aside ₹1 billion and the work is starting. I want to bring the legislation to Parliament by June this year, the latest, so that the agency can start functioning. So this is the legislative and the policy framework that the government is engaging. Sri Lanka has to become a very competitive economy. We are coming into a region which will be the growth region in the next few decades. A shift from Japan and China towards the Indian Ocean. And we have India, which will grow fast, and Sri Lanka next week. So what is the connectivity that we achieve, and what do we do in the field of the digital infrastructure? For Sri Lanka, this is essential for two reasons. One is an economy. The economy has to be driven by the digital infrastructure. And some of this is going to be useful to us. One is the agriculture modernization program. We want to have a subsistence agriculture turned into a competitive export-oriented agriculture, which means going down into the village, which we haven't done. We are supposed to have 300 or 400 agricultural service centers, but not very much was done in the last 2 decades. So we'll use that infrastructure to build the agricultural modernization center where the public and the private institutions involved in it would function at the village level. So we are looking at about 300 microeconomies for agriculture. This is what we have today. There is no supply system, all that has broken down. So which means this digital infrastructure is going to be the key to bring in these 300 odd micro agriculture economies together. So this will be an important part, both in bringing together, in transferring knowledge, in accessing markets. This is one important area that I feel we can do as far as Sri Lanka is concerned in this field of agricultural modernization. Another is our aim of reducing multidimensional poverty. Our aim is that by about 2035, the latest, we show our multidimensional poverty. The number should not exceed 10%. No country has gone down to zero. The best of the countries operate about 7%. So how do we do it? Then certainly we need this framework. We need this data to know who are the individuals we should target and what are the areas we should target. It's a question of multidimensional. How does the education system perform? How does the health system perform at the grassroots? How are the basic incomes? So it's another important tool is the multidimensional poverty. The third is our education system. On one hand, we can be very proud of the fact that we have over nearly 10,000 schools in every area. But if you look at the performance, that is disturbing. So the Honorable Minister for Education is now implementing the law. Firstly, the Constitution has created provincial boards of education. But below that, he wants to cluster the schools and have about 1,200 school boards. And those 1,200 school boards will also be backed up by a new inspectorate. Here again, look at the potential that can be achieved. So these are some of the 3 items that we are working on. Fourthly, of course, is the tremendous potential in this field as an economic activity, as a business. But we want certainly to emphasize and expand in this field of the digital economy. How much can be done? how we link ourselves up. So we are looking at, I've been looking at the digital economy as a key player in our own economy. To back this up, we need the education system, both in the schools and in the higher education. One of the decisions is to introduce AI to the schools in the next 5 years, so that we could cover it in the, thereafter within 5 to 8 years, we could have AI in every school, getting to the universities, and ensure that AI is taught in every university, and there are some technological subjects itself in the universities. Moreover, university is a university of technology, but I must also thank the Indian government for enabling us to have a campus of the Chennai IIT. In addition to it, the government is also planning to start 3 universities, of which 2 will have emphasis on technology, and 1 will be a university of technology. So that is the background we have, together with the other institutions that will be started at different levels. So in implementing it, we needed help. And the best place we could get was India. So I spoke with Prime Minister Modi when I was there last year. And as a part of our integration, we said, we'd like to go with India. You have done so much. And another reason I took India is the country that discovered zero. Where will the world be if you didn't discover zero? Can you come today and show all this? That itself is very, very important for all of us. And to be quite frank, I thought we will copy what India has done as far as is suitable to us. And let's piggyback on your experience. So this will save us a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years in development. This is why all these items were included in the vision statement, together with the other projects of integration. So we want to go ahead. I want to implement this, and I hope that we'll have the support of everyone else in going ahead. We have to make the change. We have to join the 21st century. So just as much as India has done, we will go ahead and do the same. I must also thank High Commissioner Jha for the excellent speech he made, and of course Dr. Varma, the architect, for what he's pointed out here. This is the digital public infrastructure is going to be of immense importance to us. Just as much as in the Anuradhapura period, we had a hydraulic infrastructure consisting of tanks and channels. Today, what we need is the digital infrastructure for the digital economy to be built on. And I hope the discussions here will make a fairly large contribution to the plans and programs we have. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency, the President of Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe, for your profound insights into the national vision for digital public infrastructure and its impact on our society and economy. We now transition to a cornerstone of today's conference, a panel discussion on adoption of digital public infrastructure within Sri Lanka and its transformative impact on e-governance. Our distinguished panelists will explore how DPI not only simplifies governance, but also enhances accessibility and inclusivity, fostering a stronger sense of legitimacy and trust in government processes. Please join me in welcoming Honorable Kanaka Herath, State Minister of Technology, to make the opening remarks of the panel discussion, Accelerating Digital Sri Lanka. I kindly request the audience to wait a few minutes because the Honorable State Minister has gone now to meet the President. Please join me in welcoming Honorable Kanaki Herath, State Minister of Technology, to make the opening remarks of the panel discussion, Accelerating Digital Sri Lanka.
Good morning. Your Excellency Santosh Shah, High Commissioner of India, Ministers, Members of Parliament, Keynote Speaker Dr. Pramod Verma and invitees from India, Secretary to the Ministry of Technology, and Ministry Secretaries and other officials from the government, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. It is with immense pride and deep sense of responsibility that I stand before you today to inaugurate this timely and crucial seminar, Enable, Empower, Enrich, a gathering focused on exploring the transformative potential of digital public infrastructure in our pursuit of truly digital Sri Lanka. In today's context, technology is an undeniably force shaping every facet of our lives. From the way we communicate to the way we conduct businesses, technology is not merely a tool, but an integral element of our modern extension. In this context, governments worldwide have profound responsibility to harness the power of technology and use it to advance the well-being of their citizens. DPI is a critical enabler of digital transformation and is helping to improve public service delivery whilst helping the government officials to do their jobs at ease. DPI will improve the interoperability of government and private institutions and will revolutionize governance, streamlining service delivery, and empower our citizens. Connected digital government is a key pillar in our DigiCon 2030 roadmap, and we are fully committed to making this plan operationalized. We are in the process of upgrading LGN, LGC, where we will bring in a network and a cloud with a modern-day security features. Digital financial services is another key pillar in the Sri Lanka's Digital Economic Policy 2030. And the government is committed to facilitate and lead the way for cashless transactions environment in the country. Government officials play an important role in boosting financial inclusion and promoting use of digital financial services, and I'm happy that most of the important segment of the government institutions are here today. We are also committed to enhancing skills, literacy, knowledge, and jobs of our citizens and the government officials. With the new trends in digitizing, a new position will be created such as Chief Digital Officer and many more in the government sector, and we need to identify and train our officials to take up these new jobs. Sri Lanka has made significant strides in digital journey in the recent years. However, the potential remains untapped. This seminar represents a crucial moment to accelerate our efforts and fully embrace the promise of DPIs. By prioritizing the adaptation of DPI across all levels of government, we can embark on a transformative path towards true digital government. In the journey of creating the connected digital government, having unique digital ID will be a critical element, and I am grateful to the Indian government for their support. In the journey with the digital public goods, Sri Lanka has already begun making meaningful progress. We have initiated the Sri Lanka Unique Digital ID project using MOSIP and have successfully completed its pilot phase. The full-scale implementation is currently in planning stages with the request for proposal process underway. In addition, DIVOC for smart vaccination program and DHIS2 for immunization tracking are currently being implemented. By bringing unique digital ID, we will be able to finish the duplication of data and bring transparency while curtailing corruption. Through DPIs, we seek enable our citizens by providing them with seamless access to essential services, regardless of their location or socio-economic status. Empower our businesses to innovate and thrive in a digital connected marketplace, creating new jobs and boosting our economy. Enrich the lives of our people through digital education, health, and cultural exchange, building a vibrant and knowledge-driven society. However, let us be mindful that successful adaptation of digital public infrastructure is not merely a technological challenge. It requires concrete efforts from all the stakeholders, government, private sector, and civil society. We must work collaboratively to develop the robust policies, invest in digital literacy, and address cybersecurity concerns where our government officials play an important role. I urge all officials gathered here to embrace the new era and to be the forefront runners of the change the Sri Lanka needs. I would like to take this opportunity to make a request from the government officials to complete the survey that has been sent to gather information on all digital projects, as we intend to identify the necessary digital public infrastructure in government sector. Let us seize this occasion to learn from the insight of our esteemed panelists, engage through provoking discussions, and chart a roadmap for a future where digital public infrastructure propels Sri Lanka towards a greater, prosperous, and inclusivity. Finally, I'm inviting all of you to be part of our Digital Global Investment Summit, which is going to be held on the 25th of June. It will act as a platform for tech, VCs, and investors seeking investment opportunities in Sri Lanka tech ecosystem untapped potential. I thank the Indian High Commission for organizing this event and hand-holding towards the DPI of Sri Lanka. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Honorable Kanaki Herath, for the insightful remarks. Now, please welcome our esteemed panel, Dr. Dharmasiri Kumaratunga, the Secretary of Ministry of Technology, Dr. Hans Vijay Surya, CEO, Telecommunications, Business, and Group Executive Director at Asiata Group PhD, who will be joining us virtually, Mr. Rajesh Kumar, Director Scientist of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, Mr. Krishnan Rajagopalan, Head of Country Implementations at MOSIP, Mr. Fadil Bakir Makar, Team Leader, Strategic Engagement, Digital and Innovation at UNDP. We warmly welcome you to the stage for a thought-provoking discussion on accelerating Sri Lanka's journey towards an inclusive digital future. The panel will be moderated by Dr. Pramod Verma, the co-chair of the Center for Digital Public Infrastructure.
Should I use, do you want me to use this? I'm okay with this. Or it works, yeah. So fantastic. What a great morning. By the way, this is my first trip here. It shouldn't be. And I should have been here many more times. And Dr. Hans, I missed you here, and hopefully next time it's close enough for us to come. So hopefully we'll be there. Good to see you on screen. Yeah. So wonderful to be here. I'll start off with you. So we heard the president, we heard the minister talking about DPIs. So I think, Sri Lanka is not new to this. Frankly, I mean, your tech industry is strong and, of course, economic times sometimes go up and down, but you had fantastic open source community because a lot of us as techies, We used to watch Sri Lankan open source community, vibrant community actually. Tell me about how are you now with this new renewed support and rebuilding of sort? How are you imagining, envisioning the digitization or digital infrastructure journey? As a secretary, I'm pretty sure you have big plans. Talk to us about it.
Thank you. Good morning to all. Thank you very much for Indian Embassy arranging this the event.
Go closer, I think. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Yeah. Arranging this event, I think very important for us from the Sri Lankan side. And thank you very much for all the Indian invitees and the delegates to come here to give some inputs for the DPI and other agendas. So first of all, as Minister said, digital ID is the number one agenda in our ecosystem. So even though we have started 1.5 years back, now it is in the form of implementing this digital ID system. So I don't want to explain that what are the benefits which we are having in this behind this digital ID system. Because at present even though we are having this ENI system, so there are no capturing for the biometric data. So we don't want to go for these 50 plus data capturing. As you correctly said, it's better to get the minimum type of data capturing. So we are working on that one, and so now we are closely working with the embassy, Indian Embassy. And so this is process of tendering process and selecting the consultant from UN. So in addition to that, we from the Sri Lanka side, we also working with the government digital payment platform. So at present, what we have seen is that the payment for the customer, the citizen, for the government payment, so there is no any one platform for the make a payment. So with this, the difficulties for having for the citizen, so we are planning to link with all the government payments, including utility payments and any other payments, to link with this one payment platform. That is also started from last year and launching from next month. We are planning to launch next month. Yeah. So in addition to that, as the minister also said, the local government network and also the local, the cloud system, the existing cloud system. Once you go through this local government network and also the cloud system, so there are many aspects to improvement need to be there. So most of these local government network, at present 800 plus government entities are linked with this system. And the usage of this system is quite low, and there's some specific area to use. So therefore, we want to revamp this system and the local government network. And also in addition to that, the cloud system is to be revamped. And nowadays we are working with these all the private entities with the technology ministry, and need to have the good solution for the cloud system. So what we have seen from the government side, there are many investments are going for the server-based platform. And upgrading the server-based or updating of the softwares, upgrading of the systems is huge cost in addition to the maintenance of the system. So therefore, we are proposing to have the one cloud system for the whole sectors. Private entities, even for the banks also can link for the cloud system. So this may be, at present we are having the discussion, are we going to have the private cloud or the public cloud? In India, we know all these cloud systems are within the boundary. So in our case, we are also thinking the same way and also planning to issue these national cloud policies for Sri Lanka. That is one area. So in addition to that, His Excellency the President has appointed the committee for AI, develop the AI policies for the country. Now committee has submitted the report last week, and we are in the next step to implement these policies. And also President also informed that establishment of the AI center for implementation of these AI policies and other entities. So we closely work with these state universities at present to implement these AI policies and also support for the universities and also the schools to make it happen in reality. So at present, a few universities from next month onward, we are visiting the universities and having collaboration, close collaboration with the universities to have the actual implementation of the AI in Sri Lanka. Digital Transformation Agency also, His Excellency, the President has also informed. So we are in the process of establishing of a Digital Transformation Agency in the next few months period. And in addition to that, already the Digital Strategy 2030 also launched in last year. And now we are in the process of implementing this strategy. There are more than 150 or 200 KPIs that they are given in the Digital Strategy 2030. So after we get in required approval from the government side, then we are able to, will be able to implement this Digital 2030. And Lanka QR is implemented or launched in 2018, October, I think 2 years back from the Indian side. And so there are some development need to be there. The recently
For the payment?
Payment, Lanka QR, so it's same as Bharat QR, the UPI. Then you know that even though that 2 years back you launched this QR in I think India, 50 million merchants are there in your side. In our case, it is almost 377 merchants are there, but very low transaction. Even Lanka QR is having with these toll gates in Sri Lanka. I think very few users are there for using this Lanka QR, not like India. So awareness need to be done. I think the mainly most of our users not using this Lanka QR, and even though they are having more than 55% to 60% for the smartphones with us. So in addition to that, we also planning to have this National Data Center for the Sri Lanka. At present, data capturing is having different ways, and data owners are different entities are having the data. So what we are planning is that to have a common solution for this one, having the data center should be there for as a national project. And so this will be help for the AI implementations also, for data analytics and so on. So it is better to have the data center in one location, or from, as you correctly said, that from the API anyway, we can link all these data centers in the each ministries or the other government entities or the private entities. So that is also in one agenda with us at present. In addition to that, bringing Cybersecurity Act is also established recently. Now we are in the process of working on this Digital Cybersecurity Act. With the implementation of the establishment of the Cybersecurity Agency is also required. And now we the Ministry of Technology is working with that. So with that, I think there are many other the developments taking place from the Indian side. So from that EHR system and also e-office, e-governance, e-grievances and e-procurement. So those things we need to develop with the support of India. So recently we visited the India and link with the government to implement these projects in addition to the e-locker. So the digital locker is also very important for us to implement. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. No, your hands are full. You have a lot of
stuff. There are many other projects are there, but...
oh, you have more. Okay. So one of the interesting observation, and that sets nicely to Dr. Hans, I have a question next to you, is that the two parts of digital. One, digitization of the government itself. E-procurement, e-office, e-governance, all that efficiency inside the system. And the other side of it is to create just initial infrastructure elements that allow outside the government to actually adopt. So you kept somewhat mentioning many places, QR codes, SLQR and so on, Sri Lanka QR, Lanka QR not being adopted. I think that's a real challenge, right? To figuring out what does it mean, how do we unlock value for the citizens and value for the ecosystem, not value for the government. I mean, because you can derive value for you, but nobody else sees the value. then it gets adopted very low. So I think it's always a challenge to balance that out. So Dr. Hans, I want to come to you. You know, of course, we heard DPI. You have been part of that journey. You know, we have been also discussing quite a while now, and you are deeply embedded in the system, care for it. How are you seeing it from an entrepreneur, private side? How are you seeing DPI spurring the economy and driving value for the society? Not for government, of course, will become efficient and more efficient, but what does it mean to people and companies and economy as a whole?
Thanks, Dr. Pramod. I think a very pertinent question to boil on at this point. And let me apologize for being unable to be there with you, honorable ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, I had a pre-arranged engagement in Jakarta. So to this question, I think looking at unlocking economic value, and I believe that we as Sri Lankans, today we are operating in a very tight fiscal space. And really it's exciting, it's very encouraging if you look at the world experience in terms of the application of digital public infrastructure and the acceleration it can give to economic growth. We can, in fact, chance or presume or bet that this could be the silver bullet for the Sri Lankan economy. Because if you look under the covers and ask yourselves, is there latent economic value which can be captured through DPI? And this could be in terms of doing things faster, in terms of including more citizens and more businesses in a digital economy, enabling transactions to go through which previously couldn't, including people, including talent in the economy which previously were disconnected, and so on and so forth. Then having a DPI fabric which mobilizes a larger number of businesses, mobilizes a larger number of citizens towards creating economic growth, we should be able to see a multi-digit acceleration. And in fact, I think the UNDP has estimated a 20 to 33% potential acceleration through the use of financial DPI. Wow. Likewise, if you look at DPI in the context of middle income and developing countries, again, the estimate is that certain goals in terms of economic growth can be achieved 2 or 3 years ahead of time through the application of DPI. So at a theoretical level, I think it is very exciting what DPIs and their inclusive application can deliver to in terms of economic growth. If I may take a second to go a little bit into what this really means, I think the fundamental DPIs or digital public infrastructures of identity, I think Mr. Kumaratunga and the Honorable Minister spoke about it already. Payment infrastructure, Mr. Kumaratunga and the Central Bank and many other institutions have been pioneers in enabling these DPIs already to quite an advanced level. And then moving into data sharing and federation, connecting data across various government and private sector constructs. The trust infrastructure, I think very important. And I come back to this point about trust. And of course, opening up APIs and enabling developer communities and hyperscalers, partners of the economy, various scale, to participate in generating value. So these 5 fundamental DPIs, identity, payments, data sharing and federation, trust and discovery fulfillment, that's the API ecosystems put together, I think enable, on one hand, citizens from across the country to be able to transact in the cyberspace with trust. So I'll take a simple example, that you're looking for a plumber, and what prevents a household from allowing a plumber off the street to walk in and repair their pipes or plumbing systems. It's a lack of trust. At a very human level, it's lack of trust because this individual cannot be identified with certainty, and this individual is not carrying a trust mark to transact in with his correspondent. That's a simple example from normal day-to-day life. Now, if DPIs can bring in the trust element to this individual, the digital ID combined with the trust factor, a trust score, and a payment infrastructure which enables seamless payment, and a marketplace which connects many thousands of such individuals with those requiring the services, you can imagine the mobilization that you're going to create. And the fundamentals there would be ID, trust, payment, and marketplaces or fulfillment. So if we were to then expand this to businesses, SMEs, and large businesses, but we also expand it to the connection between these ecosystems and the government, which, as you said, public services will get much more efficient. You will have exponential impact of self-fulfilling cycle, which can drive economic activity. And likewise, you can think of many other examples. Wastage to be reduced in the agricultural sector. Various technologies and developers to be able to innovate on top of these DPIs using technologies like IoT or other IR4 technology to create solutions which did not exist earlier, connect people who were not connected earlier into the economy, and reduce wastage and create economic growth out of latent value. So that's the first step. And I think when we operate within a very tight fiscal space, when we have economic constraints, then extracting the maximum from our talent, maximum from our business communities, maximum from the great IT ecosystem which is present in Sri Lanka, both in the private and public sector. So I think it's a major step forward, and I thank everyone who is putting their shoulder behind this wheel.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hans. I think, again, this keeps coming back, that bringing market players in the DPI story. And one is digitization of the government, necessary, it should happen because government itself should be efficient and should be simple, efficiently and transparently running it. But second is to create the playground for the market players to create economic opportunity for the society as a whole, SMEs, individuals, and so on, because that's where the real drive is going to be. Otherwise, it'll look like government is digitizing, and probably the people might even suspiciously look at some of this, when government pushes for digitization. It's a very interesting balance that needs to be achieved. Fantastic point. I want to come back to you, Rajesh. So, India, very interestingly, identity, Aadhaar, was just the beginning of the project for us. And I was mentioning in the talk, many of the DPI subsequently, government just about did it, or sometimes just blesses it, like the ONDC or e-sign, Ministry of IT did e-sign. That was just a set of specification. It was e-sign was implemented by market players fully. But under the IT Act, you said this is how the standards ought to be. So we built a set of in fact, it didn't even cost government much, but talk to us about what happened beyond Aadhaar. And I spoke about some of them, and from an insider perspective, from Ministry of IT, which pushed e-sign, DigiLocker, and subsequently many of the other efforts that's going on, including CoWIN and much of the work we're doing there. Now with Bhashini and AI, even bigger topic. Talk to us about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Verma.
Yeah, it's on. I think you have to just go closer.
I'm audible?
Yeah.
So who could be a better speaker than Dr. Pramod Verma himself about Aadhaar and its journey? But yes, I'm here to represent the Government of India, Ministry of Electronics and IT, to talk about India's digital journey started with Aadhaar and the other digital public infrastructure solutions and e-government solutions developed around India stack. So the Aadhaar journey started in 2009, as you pointed out in your presentation. It's a 12-digit individual identification number, which serves as a proof of identity of any individual or the address of the resident of India. And India Stack is basically a technological stack that brings together multiple e-governance solutions as well as digital public infrastructure solutions, which is the moniker for a set of digital public codes, solutions for identity, data, payments, etc. And it is built across various sectors, whether it is healthcare, education, manufacturing, logistics. So it encompasses several solutions with some of the major recognizable ones such as Aadhaar, the unified payment interface, DigiLocker, the document vault. When we talk about the commerce, it is Open Network for Digital Commerce, ONDC. The CoWIN app, which was utilized during the pandemic period by India and helped a lot to every citizen of the country for vaccination and its certification process. So Aadhaar linkage with India Stack is built upon its use cases. So whether we talk about the electronic Know Your Customer solution, whether we talk about e-sign as you mentioned, we talk about the unified payment interface, or we talk about DigiLocker, wherein your documents are being authenticated through the Aadhaar ecosystem. And it goes on multiple solutions with during the 2016 to 18 period, we used the system of unified payment interface, and along with that, we used the Aadhaar-enabled payment system. And also, it was used for the direct benefit transfer, which saved around US $33 billion for the government of India. It creates the transparency and prevented leakages in the system. So I think this journey has given an opportunity to the citizens of India as well as the business community of India to build upon these systems and work upon this and empower themselves and create a business opportunity as well as employment opportunities for the citizens. Thank you.
Yeah, just one question before I want to go to Fadil and then come back to Krish, okay? Lot of people around the world ask this question. Did India mandate all these things to push through? And other, questionable, right? In the sense, it was optional to get it, but for at least for most people, it became pseudo-mandatory. In the sense, without it, you can't get benefits anyway. So, or income tax, for example. So other is, maybe pseudo-mandatory, right? I mean, it's voluntary to get it, but only if you're at top of the pyramid. Otherwise, you pretty much need it. But interestingly, none of the rest of the India stack was mandated. Interestingly, Brazil, PIX was mandated to all the banks that they shall do. RBI still doesn't mandate UPI to the banks. So DigiLocker is not mandated. E-sign is not mandated. So I think somehow India unlocked market and the value for the people for the scale. Otherwise, you can always do this, stick business, right? Government actually is not bad at it at all. I mean, you can actually say, you shall do, right? But it doesn't go well with the people. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you view it? As again, insider, I'm asking some questions. Yeah.
if you talk about Digital India journey, started in 2015, it's all about empowerment. Right?
Yeah, true.
So when we talk about empowerment, you don't have to compel people to do something, right?
If you're empowering, you can't be compelling.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you have to be flexible in approaches wherein you empower the citizens of your country as well as you create business opportunities for the market. At the same time, you also put forth governance framework around the solutions you are developing.
Yes, yes.
So as you rightly mentioned in your initial presentation, that Government of India did not do application programming.
Correct.
So it created the environment which facilitated the ecosystem to work together, and DPI, the digital public infrastructure, really empowers the citizens and create opportunities for the market. And it basically resides on the whole of ecosystem approach rather than a siloed approach.
Very well said. Yeah, that's fantastic. And by the way, the I part of DPI it means it's an infrastructure, not the whole solution by itself. And everyone else is supposed to build solutions like the road, right? Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Rajesh. Now, Fadil, I want to come back to you. And UNDP has been, huge supporter, been anyway doing digitization in general around the world, supporting that effort. You've been here, your team's been here supporting not only this country, many countries. But DPI, Kezom and her friends there really took on quite well. And then you had this 15-5 campaign, which is ambitious, by the way. That 50 countries in 5 years, because 2030, we are all looking at, the development goals, and then we better get to it, and we only have 5 years left, or 6 years left. Talk to us about how is it going, and why did you drive 15-5?
Thank you, Dr. Varma.
You may have to go closer.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a pleasure being here with you. I think we connected a year and a half ago with Kezom, a couple of virtual calls. So for UNDP, as you know, we have innovation facilities over 100 countries, in over 100 countries. And we facilitate this, as you use that term as well. And I represent UNDP and also the Citra Lab here. Citra Lab is an innovation facility based here, a first-generation UNDP lab that was set up with the government of Sri Lanka, currently anchored with the Prime Minister's office. And we want to drive this. So it's part of our DNA. And, as the largest governance agency within the UN system, right, we took this on. And we're pleased that during India's G20 presidency, we also became a knowledge partner. Developed so much information and knowledge. And it's mind-blowing when you start looking at these things coming in. So we took on another challenge working with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I think UNICEF is involved, the DPGA, the Center for DPI, and many others, saying 50 in 5. So 50 countries in 5 years really coming together to start at least one piece of that foundational DPI.
Excellent.
That is what we're looking at. And when we launched it in November last year, we had, I think, 9 or so countries. Now we have 12.
Doesn't have to be just ID, right?
No, not just the ID.
One block. Get one block.
One block, just one block. So I think Mahesh from Sri Lanka spoke about the fuel pass, right? And I think in Norway spoke about the fisheries industry. So how they are using. Norway, you would wonder, such a developed country, and everything is so advanced. And no, they said, no, they want to capture using AI and different technologies. And this is a big piece. So first movers, I think most recently we had a Dominican Republic joining in, I think 12 countries now. So we have 5 years. Let's start proving. And you asked a sub-question there. How far have we got?
Yes.
So you take Sri Lanka, fuel pass is one case that they use. But I think for me personally, there's so much we can do, connecting that fuel pass. It was mandatory at that time because we had no choice. Necessity. It was by necessitated and it was a push. But can we link that fuel pass to paying fines, to your ETC, the toll card you said. We have all these existing siloed systems, siloed infrastructure, many programs, many investments are being made. But can we connect the dots, right? So that is one piece. But I'm sure Sri Lanka will achieve and be a forerunner in the 15-5.
Absolutely.
Because one example I'll use, CRVS project, which we've just started. To work with the Public Administration Ministry and the Department for Registrar General for Person Registry. At the very bottom level, birth certification. We've worked over the last 3 weeks with over 16 agencies coming together to design that. because it connects to everyone.
Convert it to a digital credentials as well,
Here I go.
while you are at it. Yeah.
So I think most of the countries will go in 15.5. It's an ambitious, bold target, but I think people are rallying behind it to take on the challenge.
Excellent. No, this is exciting, and because it also tells Sri Lanka or other countries that they are not alone in this journey. There's a large set of funders to design or support agencies to open source, which I'll come to Krish to talk about it. There's a large set of assets that are actually available out there for countries to leverage. It's the intent and the direction and actually internalizing that it is for the people and for the economy and not for the government. I think if you can internalize that well, I think the adoption would be naturally well as well. I think this will be an exciting journey.
So Dr. Parma, they're absolutely spot on. I think intent is key.
Intent is key.
Intent is key. And you have to design it with intention. If
Yeah.
you don't design, many programs that we spoke about.
Hey, you're talking to the designer architect, so I
know,
love it.
there you go.
Yeah.
So I think that's
design
the
is
key.
everything. Yeah, of
Exactly,
course, of course.
exactly.
Yeah. No, of course, execution matters as well. Designing is not good enough. Krish, I want to come back to you. I think you have heard, very ambitious plan. I mean, he said he still has another 5 pages to cover, and and of course, India's journey itself is not ending. We have a long way to go. Frankly, we have to be humble. We have a long way to go. Healthcare, education, agri is a big topic for us. And of course, AI, everybody is, sort of figuring out what the hell is going on. It's a journey. You have to start one day and keep at it and keep unlocking value. And you have begun this journey with open source because Aadhaar itself was not open source. Aadhaar itself was not available. And you know what? India to give Aadhaar, it doesn't make any sense because we can't give Aadhaar. Aadhaar is for us, right? So there was a interesting question from the world that, it would be nice to have open source. With Sri Lanka, it's a huge open source community. I'm very sure they'd appreciate that. Creating truly open source assets that can accelerate this journey is much better. And now with funding and intent, now we can bring it together, right? So talk to us about MOSIP for the people who don't know, and also talk to about, I'll probably ask 2 questions together, and talk to us about MOSIP's global adoption as well. I don't think people may have seen how far MOSIP has gone. And MOSIP, while it is housed in Bangalore, but you have other parts of the world as well now, actually it was not meant for India at all. Interestingly, MOSIP was built for other people as open source because we felt, and it is funded also from outside, for philanthropy funded, right? Talk to us about it. Talk to us MOSIP and adoption.
Good morning. Very happy to be here. I hope I am very audible. I just want to resonate, before I really talk about open source, I just want to resonate with Dr. Hans. He said that, you asked a question to Dr. Hans, you asked, how are you seeing DPI? And he said that unlocking economic value is the bedrock of DPI. That's the way he actually started, right?
Yes.
Now, so unlock that economic value, I would look at it foundational ID as, I don't know, bedrock, subrock, whatever you want to call it. That's the one that's really required to really identify anybody very efficiently, effectively, to really reach this DPI value to them. Otherwise, DPI value is not going to reach them. So to create a foundational ID system, there are a lot of ways of doing that. Now, why open source? Obviously, open source software, like MOSIP, for example, is going to give the power in the hands of the government, right? Because they are the ones who are going to own it up, and they know exactly what is happening inside
Like
story.
a sovereignty question,
The sovereignty
You
request.
have the IP, intellectual
You have the
property,
IP.
fully
Exactly.
in your control.
Instead of falling prey in the hands of somebody else, where you really don't know what's going on inside, you actually get the insider story by yourself, right? And often it's called vendor lock-in as a situation, which we don't have to get into. Now, coming back to your original question of MOSIP, so for people who do not know MOSIP, I'm sure that a lot of people by now know what MOSIP is. MOSIP is an open source software. It's called Modular Open Source identity platform. It was conceived in about 2017, 2018. Pramod, you were there as the initial conceiving team. What it does is it's a software which enables countries to create the national ID system. Now, it has got all the bells and whistles that one can think of for an ID system. That includes everything starting from registering a resident, doing an ID issuance, deduplication, everything that you can think of. It's all there in MOSIP. Now, why does a country need MOSIP? Obviously, it's open source, number one. Number two is, it puts the owners of the platform is the country itself. That's the other beauty of open source, the other beauty of MOSIP. The source code is available on GitHub. That means, for example, you don't have to really depend on MOSIP team to really fix a problem. Like as you said, Lanka there's no dearth of technical talent, right? I know that the open source foundation of Lanka called Lanka Foundation.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Very well said.
It's very well energetic and a lot of passionate technical people. It's simply easy for them to really adopt it. They don't really need the MOSIP team. Of course, MOSIP team is there to support them.
Happy to support, yeah.
No doubt about it. But then they can take MOSIP to the next level, right? Now, coming back to your other question, in terms of what I've been doing
Adoption
in MOSIP.
around the world,
Yeah. So MOSIP now is being used by about 19 to 20 countries. It's about 6 years. It's like, I wouldn't call it as a baby, but it's just a growing kid. But then what we have done is, we have taken it to a lot of countries. Many of these countries are in different stages of implementing MOSIP. One of the largest implementers of MOSIP is Philippines, which has actually issued about 85 million registration cards using MOSIP technology. Morocco is in the next stage of actually completing their complete ID development and registration process with about 36 million registrations. Ethiopia is another example, Uganda. So some of the countries are trying to learn MOSIP technologies through a pilot process. I would like to quote here, Sri Lanka was one of the forefronters.
Yeah, the pilot was quite ahead of time.
Yes, it was quite ahead of time. And I want to actually congratulate the team sitting here. We actually started, I was involved in the Sri Lankan SLUDI pilot, as it used to be called, run by ICTA, where in 2021 we started, and I think it's about 2020, about 2 years' time, about 2022, I think SLUDI team was able to actually complete a full pilot. It's not just issuance of ID, Pramod. They were able to authenticate using biometrics and then issue an eSIM and enable it instantly. This was done as a pilot process. And
so pilot demonstrated an application built on APIs.
Application built on open APIs, right? And they were able to customize it. This is the other beauty of MOSIP. Countries can customize it to their needs, the way they want, because MOSIP cannot assume anything about a country. We only provide open source technologies and open APIs. The power is in the hands of the country. That's what Sri Lanka did, ICTA did. And finally, they were able to complete the whole process. Unfortunately, they were not able to take it forward because of the economic slowdown that kicked in that time. I wish if that would not have happened.
But he said this is, ID is a big topic for them.
Exactly.
So they're going to, kickstart.
Yeah. So just to conclude this, if that would not have happened, I'm sure that Sri Lanka by now would have gone forward to much ahead of time, and they would have really got benefit out of MOSIP, and they would probably be in some kind of a middle way of implementing it also.
Yeah, fantastic. No, this is good. I think Sri Lanka adopting open source is natural. I think it should work really well for them, given the community, generally very supportive of open source, good tech community, startup ecosystem. I think it should work really well. I think it's a very natural thing. And as you said, it's for the countries to own the intellectual property. National critical infrastructure cannot be hostaged by somebody else, so it has to be owned internally in the country. So an unity of that critical infrastructure and so on. Applications can be all private, but the critical infrastructure is should be in the control of the country. And open source allows that. I think it's a good thing. I'll come back to Dr. The trigger, what could trigger to, now one project at a time, you listed 30 of them? And it could be quite long. How do we compress the time? How do we, by doing minimum and getting the ecosystem to do maximum? And how do we trigger this journey and challenges that you're going to face? Of course, everyone faces challenges. I know that you have a lot of challenges as well. And how could communities stand up to actually de-risk some of those challenges? So what could trigger and what are the challenges?
So basically,
Maybe we can, I don't know about the time. Somebody has to give us cue. Maybe we'll keep shorter. Okay, we'll keep answers this time short because they're all starting to ask me to cut off. Okay, okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think so. It's very important to look what are the challenges we are facing and the existing challenges for designing and the implementation, and also the maintenance part. So there's various type of challenges are there with working with especially for the government entities. And basically for the digital ID side, so it is better to educate ourselves what is happening, which are using with the MOSIP system. So there are some misconceptions are there. So that is the mainly, so you have to educate the audience and also
educate the stakeholders.
Stakeholders,
no
all
question
the
about
stakeholders.
it, yeah.
So basically the data protections of these customer data protections, and also data locations is also the discussion point at present with that. So we know that is at present most of these 5 countries are working, and also 30-odd countries are having this MOSIP system. So that is one so aspect we want to clear from our side. And the other problem which we are having is that, or the challenges we are having is that, now go back to the 2013, we implemented from the Sri Lanka side common ATM switch. That's the cash, any ATM you can withdraw the money. And
that's nice.
Yeah. So the thing is that, but we do not promote the ATM anymore, because almost all these things are with our mobile apps, and the purse is having with the mobile app, then the wallet is with us, then so we don't promote these ATM anymore. And from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka side also, I think they are getting the necessary steps not to have more ATM and restrict some ATM for this, and not to promote any cash award for the ATM usage is also the one aspect. In addition to that, common electronic fund transfer switch is also established during 2015. The 5 million rupees can be transferred, I think, within few seconds, and that's also very important. In addition to that, so if you are transferring more money, then of course you can use the RTG system as doing with the RBI, so it's also having the same. And so this is also need to be linked with the customers now. The present RTG system is not the user friendly, and now recently, that last week, the new RTG system is already done, or the launch, deployed with the central bank. Now it is up to all the commercial bank to link with this. What my main concept is that from transferring money less than 5 million rupees to the other account, customer to customer, or the customer to other utility payment entities. So RTG is also should be there in the web link for the user-friendly manner for the use of the customer. So that is what we expecting for the RTG side. And in India, what I've seen with the experience from the India is that for the RTG system, there's a large value payment system. So almost more than 60 or the 80 entities are linked with the RTG system. But here in Sri Lanka, only the banks and the financial institution is linked.
Okay.
In Korea, it is more than 160 entities are linked with the RTG system.
Correct.
So we have to open up for the others.
Yeah.
So that is, I suggested more than 5 years back. I think Central Bank will work on that.
Okay.
So in addition to that, the QR code payment, so it is not much popular like India. And after we link with this UPI, I am expecting that Indian will use more than Sri Lankan. So if you are not using, I think we are promoting for the Sri Lankan to use this.
Yeah.
And also the card payment. So now card payment is a physical. Now we want to introduce as a virtual card.
Virtual
so
cards,
that
yeah.
is a trend in all the countries. And use for the transport card. We were discussing transport card, open loop transit card.
Yes.
Is on last 5 to 6 years, but
Yeah.
it has not happened yet. And the transport card and also the QR code can be used for the three-wheeler.
Of course.
For the other taxis. Anywhere, any places we can use as in India, same as India. So the major problem which we are having is that education. So even though we are spending or we investing a lot of cost for the printing of money from the central bank side, but we have to think what kind of investment we have to make for the digital payment.
Okay.
So that is investment for the country,
Yeah.
and less cost for the investment for the cost for the printing of the money.
Correct.
So at present, it's a huge transaction cost will be impact for the usage of money, storage, printing, and also the destruction of the
huge.
money is a
Yeah.
huge cost, more than 3.2 billion in 2022, but now it has quite reduction, but it's a huge cost for the country. So we have to rethink on that one. Are we getting approval for the printing of money or investing something for the digital payment?
Yeah.
So that has to be rethink. And also the regulatory sandbox also established in 2020, but only 6 applications received, nothing graduated. So there are some regulation has to be changed.
Okay.
So that
Fantastic.
is a restriction. Some of the restriction from the CBSA side, they will look on that one. So from the government side, as you correctly said, most of the government entities work silos that separate.
But that's by design.
Yeah, it has not the
Yeah.
link with that.
That's
so
true.
when we are, I think that Honorable Minister also called, we recently we called create the form and submitted the application which they are having for the IT system, now collecting all the data and see the same entity or the same HR system is having different places.
Yeah.
So that is what we are collecting now,
Yeah.
and have the one system for all.
Okay. Yeah, legal identity for both individuals and companies is a very important starting point for many things to happen. That's true. So I'm very conscious of time. So I want to maybe rush through a little bit. Dr. Hans, I want to ask maybe 2 brief questions. Maybe keep the answers brief so that we can get through. I think they're all asking me to really get off the stage. Yeah, I'm actually really late. Yeah. So authentic eKYC and authentication. And you are a telecom man. And so in the telecom, specifically, beyond the use of this payment, recurring payments, eKYC for telecom sector is one area you can comment on. And second, he talked about the data center and other aspects where telecom, or even payment, last mile payment, because telecom has penetrated really well. So how can telecom companies both leverage these APIs for further innovation and contribute in terms of getting into beyond telecom in payments or data center and other things that support the larger mission?
Yeah, thanks, Pramod. I think telecom, I'll start with the basic ubiquity, providing the coverage at the required level of availability, affordability, very important, affordable, and also latency required to carry out mission-critical transactions. Data security on top of that, again, global telecom standards support the end-to-end security, and especially with 5G becoming even more advanced security standards coming in on each layer of the network. eKYC, yes, the foundational ID obviously is a national DPI asset, which we need to build, and I think Mr. Rajgopalan also spent a lot of time on that. But on top of that, I think mobile KYC, around the information and behavior patterns and other characteristics of individuals, you will be able to augment the basic foundational ID with much richer eKYC. In addition, telco networks increasingly are opening up the network features through APIs. And I see a lot of potential to combine the power of telco APIs with the Sri Lanka UDI, SL UDI, especially because if it's based on MOSIP, as we heard, it's all open, many APIs. You combine telco APIs with the SL UDI APIs.
Excellent.
Envisage a federated data environment. I think our developer communities can really take us to the next level from that platform.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's an interesting point you brought up. It's not only that you can leverage telecom itself, they can offer open APIs for the national offer API for I mean, layered eKYCs or layered authentication or real-time authentication on mobile. Everybody has a mobile. I mean, you should be able to authenticate real-time. It's a fantastic, I mean, startups would love it to be able to use what is already existing. If you API-fy, it makes it easier for other people to innovate on top of
And
it.
I think the POC Mr. Rajgopal mentioned, I think really demonstrated one or two of these telco APIs.
Oh yeah,
being
correct,
combined.
correct. In the pilot,
There's
you're right.
multiple MNOs participating there.
Yeah.
But that was early days, but shows the potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the potential has been seen. I think the now potential is to be realized. I think that's the journey Sri Lanka has done. I want to come back to Rajesh. How are you helping from an India perspective, capacity building? Because that keeps coming back, saying you have IT capacity, we don't have IT capacity. But do we, first of all, do we need that much IT capacity? Or do we need program capacity? Do we need policy making capacity? Are you helping other countries? Do you have plans for helping?
Yes, definitely. It all started with work of G20 under the Indian presidency last year. When we did some research on the global DPI ecosystem, we came to know that there are many countries who are working on these systems, and it's not only India. There are other countries also, such as Brazil, Singapore, Indonesia, and Singapore. So these countries are already working on these kind of solutions. And also, they are creating an opportunity for the private sector to build upon it.
Correct.
And when India, under the G20 presidency, took the flagship idea of DPI, so we came across many issues that are prevailing in the global south nations, especially with respect to their capacity building and technical assistance. So we joined with them, and during the G20 presidency, we signed 10 MOUs with some of the countries to share India's experience on India Stack and DPI solutions, which may be either replicated or deployed as per the country's own requirement.
Indeed.
So it is very important point to mention that the country's own requirement is very, very important here. So you cannot replicate
Copy
each
paste.
and every, copy paste each and every solution in every country. So you have to assess the feasibility, the availability of physical and digital infrastructure, their capacity building, and their digital literacy, as well as other digital requirements, so as to fulfill all those gaps and then identify and specific solutions based upon their needs. And India is happy to help all those countries of global south nations in technical assistance and capacity building. Towards this, India proposed 3 deliverables during the G20 working groups. So the first was the G20 framework on systems of DPI, wherein we first conceptualized the idea of DPI at the international fora, and it was unanimously agreed by all the G20 members. It constitutes its definition, the components, that is tech layer, the governance, and the community layer, and its basic design principles, which talks about the interoperability, the inclusiveness, the openness, the privacy by design.
Privacy,
So these are very, very important aspect of a DPI framework, which have been talked about in the G20. Along with that, we also came up with the proposal of global DPI repository. So we have already developed that DPI repository in our country. And presently we have 54 DPI solutions from 16 countries.
Listed there.
So it is already a live portal, that is dpi.global, wherein we have solutions from 54 countries. 54 DPIs from 16 countries, and soon we expect to have some solutions from countries like Sri Lanka also, as they are on pace of developing the DPI ecosystem in their
Absolutely.
country. Besides that, we have also built a consensus on a multi-stakeholder
Okay,
initiative.
they're all staring at me, okay? Yeah, we need to
Sorry.
really close. Yeah.
I'll just
yeah.
finish it up in
Yeah.
2 minutes. For coordinated approach for financing and technical assistance and capacity building for global South nations. So it is intent in terms of His Excellency High Commissioner of India announced about the One Future allowance. Now it has taken a shape of social impact fund, wherein India has announced US $25 million to contribute to deploy DPI ecosystem in the global South nations.
Excellent.
So through these initiatives, we are trying to build up relation with the countries who need technical assistance, capacity building, and financing ecosystem in their country.
Excellent. Yeah, no, this is fantastic. I mean, this is a multi-stakeholder, multi-year effort. I think every country ought to be in their own journey, contextualize it, and keep at it. There's, you can't analysis paralysis. We just have to keep doing it. It's good to see the support extended by India as well. You have really short time, both of you, okay? So first for you, Krish. Yes or no question. I know, by the way, I know MOSIP, the advantage of MOSIP was Aadhaar started 8 years, at least 8 years before MOSIP, and we kept building privacy and security, as we learned. The good part about MOSIP was day one onwards, you could implement all that thing in the open source. Encryption, very advanced, by the way. I don't think people have looked at MOSIP's capability. Security and privacy capabilities, cutting edge, world class. And I've been saying, whoa, this is really advanced. And I hope Sri Lanka really takes leverage of it because people will ask you. Your citizens will ask. Yes or no? Very well done, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. And I know that this is a discussion everywhere. Yes. All countries are asking you.
No, that's the first question they ask.
Yeah. Is it secure?
Is it secure? Yes. Is it privacy protected? Yes. The best answer, I don't want to take too much
Even
time
consented
here.
access.
The best answer is the privacy and security aspects is from day one of the design.
Yeah.
The problem, Pramod, is software engineers typically develop code, write code, and at the end, is it secure? Well, let me build a security layer on top of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why,
by design. Privacy by design. Or security by design.
Right from day one, we have considered security and privacy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to discuss with anybody who's
No,
interested to know more.
They'll all probably ask you subsequently.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, but then, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. No, I think it's important. One sense, it is open source. So somebody can take it and not make it privacy friendly. But again, I think your citizens will, question you.
If somebody say, Lanka Foundation, for example, can look at the code.
Can
and then
scrutinize
they say that, I found that this 2,100 line code of this particular module seems leaking memory and anybody can take over the server. Let's say, for example, it's not happening that way. I have a solution, let me fix it.
You can actually fix it.
Rewarding experience, right? It's all together.
It's fantastic. I know open source, nothing like open source. I'm a huge fan of open source. It's the best way to keep public scrutiny on. There's nothing like it. Yeah. Okay, last word. This is really short. Okay. Yeah. How is it connected to you goals, 2030 goals?
In every way possible.
How is DPI connected to it at all? Are they connected?
Yes, of course. I think it's like, I would say DPI is like a turbocharge for achieving SDGs.
That's an excellent question.
So there are some numbers I would like to share. I think the World Economic Forum said 6% GDP.
6%
GDP will rise if you use proper DPI methods. Then a World Bank study said for digital ID, 39% more coverage can be achieved. And I think you used all the examples here, so you didn't leave us any. But also I think it says 70%. Acceleration progress for SDGs can here.
70% progress.
Progress can be achieved through following
fantastic.
GDP. But just want to touch on this, what Professor Dr. Hans started, and you guys all spoke about the trust infrastructure.
Trust.
And it's an important piece, right? Monopolization of data can take place, different way. So we need proper safeguards.
Absolutely. I think
proper safeguards.
Trust, infrastructure, and incentive alignment. Incentive for people, incentive for the market. If incentives are not aligned and not trustworthy, it doesn't matter how much money you're going to pour in. It will become a supply side activity. That's what it's going to be. Nobody's going to adopt it. Fantastic. I know I'm really late. I don't think even we have time for Q&A. But, we can't get all of them on the stage together. So, Dr. Hans, I know it would have been lovely to have you here. But thank you so much for a big round of applause for them, for the panelists, for sharing their wisdom. I'm not sure I have Q&A. Do we have Q&A time? We can? All right. If somebody has really some important question to ask, you're most welcome to ask the panelists. Otherwise, they're all available, by the way, during the day to interact as well. Yeah. Okay, I think people seem to... I think it's time for a break, probably, right? Yeah, it's a coffee break. All right. Thank you so much. They're all around. Make sure that you chat with them. Thank you so much.
We'll reconvene. We'll reconvene after the tea coffee break at 11:50 for our next panel, Unlocking the Digital Stack. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to please be seated as we are about to start the next panel discussion, Unlocking Digital Stack. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to please be seated as we are about to start the next panel discussion, Unlocking Digital Stack. Okay. May I request you to please be seated? We are starting now. We are about to embark on an illuminating journey beyond the foundational aspects of digital public infrastructure. Our next panel discussion shines a spotlight on the vast potential of DPI halls for enabling diverse use cases, particularly within the vibrant startup ecosystem. Please join me in welcoming Honorable Dr. Deharshit De Silva, Member of the Parliament of Sri Lanka, to make the opening remarks to the panel discussion on unlocking the digital stack.
Thank you. Good day. So if you all take our seats, we can start and hopefully finish on time. His Excellency, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, my dear friend Santosh Jha, Honorable State Minister, Honorable Members of Parliament, distinguished invitees from India and Sri Lanka. Nimalka, a young woman emergency medical technician of a 1990 suicide ambulance, pulls out the automatically unfolding stretcher on which Somavira, 60 years of age, is lying barely conscious at the National Hospital of Sri Lanka with severe bleeding and multiple other complications upon a three-wheeler accident in Kiribati. A bunch of tubes are connected to him and a portable monitor lies by his side. A team of doctors are ready for Somavira's management. They arrive in 8 minutes and 50 seconds on the dot as per the data captured on the ETA screen. ETA screen is estimate time of arrival screen. At the ETU, that is the emergency unit, which was populated dynamically with critical information related to the incident, as such became available via the ePCR, that is the electronic patient care report. In fact, most of the information was automatically captured via the connected machines and multiple onboard cameras. They were concerned with his vitals. His blood pressure was very high and pulse was low. Not only current data, but the doctors also knew Somavira's medical history, his exact medical condition, that he was a diabetic and was on insulin, that he also had a heart attack when he was 45 years, and the medication he was on. They also knew he was allergic to a common antibiotic. This information was critical. The surgical team had time to prepare for the specific emergency and subsequent surgery. What amazed most was that the relevant parts of the video communication between Suren, the emergency doctor at Suicide Command and Control at Rajagiriya, and Nimalka, the EMT, was already shared with the team at the National Hospital to clear some doubts. This was possible because it was a connected ambulance, meaning Nimalka wore a helmet with HoloLens technology that allowed Suren to observe and advise her all the way from initial intervention through the ride, given the complex nature of the incident. Now, did I make up this story? Well, actually, 1990 suicide is highly technologically advanced. Almost all what I said is true. I said almost. But before I continue, let me take a moment to thank the people of India whose $23 million grant, not a loan, a grant that helped us start this service, as basic as it was in 2016 to 2019, to winning, according to the World Bank, or rather according to the World Bank, which is now one of the most advanced ambulance services in the world. In fact, most of the audience may not know that 1990 launched a few units with state-of-the-art AI-powered mixed reality connected ambulances last December. That is what I was talking about, the HoloLens. The first of the estimated time of arrival screens has been set up at the NHSL. It is the first of 100 screens in 100 hospitals project that will be launched hopefully in a matter of weeks. But one important part of the story I made up. That is that the team at NHSL knew Soma Veera's medical history. They didn't have that information. This is a major shortfall. This is what this session is about. This is where the seamless service delivery got stuck. We may have the most advanced ambulance to bring the patient, but if the doctors are not aware of exactly his medical condition, it may take the doctors time to understand, study, look for his medical records, and start managing that patient. So tech people explain DPI using terms that most like myself won't understand. They will incorporate technology that seem unreal. The systems will later, the systems that they talk about, let data zip through pipes at speed of light and run all kinds of algorithms, as wonderfully explained by Pramod earlier this morning. But at the end of the day, what matters is Soma Veera, not your DPI, not your API, not your unique ID, not anything, but Soma Veera. Can we save his life? So I was asked to briefly speak on the potential power of DPI to drive innovation ecosystems by enabling use cases, combining technology, markets, governance with reference to Sri Lanka. So that is why my example. From a simple policy perspective, unlocking the digital stack to me means the opportunity for innovation in a systematic manner on a free or almost free, privacy-protected flow of information. That is how I see. You tech guys may see it in different tech ways, but as a policy guy, that's how I see it. I like the New Delhi definition of DPI, a set of shared digital systems that are secure and interoperable, built on open technologies to deliver equitable access to public and or private services at a societal scale. It's simple, it's crisp, it conveys the message. Well, the internet and GPS, I suppose, are the foundation of digital public goods. They are non-excludable and non-rival from an economist perspective, but I must say to the extent, based on the capacity of the pipes, sometimes internet becomes very slow, at least in this country. Well, I guess the US government spent billions to develop that public infrastructure, or that infrastructure which is now public. How each country incentivizes their tech communities to develop applications to achieve their own development objectives would depend on government policy based on their own national needs. Ours may be different to India's. I was just talking during the tea break that we are already much banked. When India started, India was 20% banked according to Pramod, right? But that is not our case. So what is our need? What is our priority? Technology capabilities. We heard here our capabilities are as good, if not better, than anyone else around the world. Then societal structures. Now there, I must admit that somehow we seem to be much slower in adapting technology. We don't seem, even at a policy level, wanting to be transparent. Help private enterprise build on public infrastructure. There seems to be some reason why things are not moving. I'll come to that. But for Sri Lanka, the example of Suvasaria provides more than a basic structure of how high-quality emergency healthcare services can be provided through digital innovation on public goods. At a very basic level. But as I mentioned, the story is not complete. There is a huge hole that needs to be plugged. Right? What is stopping the exchange of data of Somavira's medical records from various hospitals he has been treated in the past? Besides the fact that we still do not collect and store medical data on an accepted structure, it is because Sri Lanka lacks the basic elements to create an appropriate DPI. So the three critical pieces, as we heard, identification, proving who you are. And Aadhaar is only doing that. It doesn't do anything else. Are you Harsha De Silva? Yes, you are Harsha De Silva. Then second, transfer of value. In the case of UPI, secure financial transactions empowering hundreds of millions. Now here, I am pretty convinced we have a fairly well-developed structure of Lanka Pay, etc. And third, the consent-based data exchange. Right? We were just chatting at tea about the DigiLocker, how all the records are stored with consent to be given by the individual who owns the data, right, to exchange that data. So, you see, that is the model that India is taking. Personally, I'm in favor of the Indian model, as opposed to the US or the Western model, where the government takes the lead to create the basic infrastructure, decentralized, like we heard earlier, open loop, interoperable, and societal. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. And here, you will say, well, where's the money? But if you look at UPI, or if you look at Lanka Pay, it is not the government's money that created these agencies. I think UPI is owned by like 50 banks or something. So is Lanka Pay. Everybody has a gain. Is Pareto optimal to do it? The transaction will bring benefits to both sides. Right? So it is imperative we, and I'm going to stress, immediately embark on establishing the main building blocks of a DPI so that we can unlock the potential digital stack. Right? Not just to fill the hole in Somavira's story, but to create millions of others equally compelling stories. See, the point to note is these things are not as sexy as the fintech we saw, because those can be monetized and startups can make millions fairly quickly. But health applications, education applications, agriculture applications are much more complex than the ones that we saw, right? But that is the need. So, I hope the two countries will soon be able to resolve the issue to get started with building the, whatever it is called, Aadhaar-like unique ID that we keep talking about for years. And I recall when Mangala Samaravira departed, once called me and said, Harsha, I want you to help these guys on the Aadhaar-like or unique ID. We called Mr. Nandan Nilekani, and because Mangala told me, look, in a week I want your report. And he was out of town. He said, you gentlemen, please come. I will ask the CEO to explain everything. Myself, Harin Fernando, Mrs. Mubarak, ICTA folk, we all got on a plane and went to Delhi. In the morning, came back in the evening, all excited. Nothing happened after that. Wanted to have some card. Card is not necessary. I once asked a tuk-tuk guy, where's your Aadhaar card? He said, what card, sir? If I want, I can print it and carry it around my neck, but I don't need it. Why do you need a card? Why do you need to spend billions for it? You don't. Right? So, then came the October coup, then came the Easter attack, then came the change, then came the crisis, now we are here. We heard the president say that we need to create a digital Sri Lanka. Stop talking about 300 projects. Focus on one project. Focus on getting the unique ID done. That is what is going to unlock the digital stack. Try to understand this. I'm embarrassed to sit here and listen to stuff that is being spoken about without speaking to the point. Now, why is it stuck? Is it corruption? Or is it somebody else wants power? What is it? Why is it not moving? Why? Ask the question, why? Or is it some people don't want transparency? Or somebody wants to make $1 million? Look, we are so far behind India. We are embarrassingly behind India. Let us be honest. We need to catch up. And here is a hand extended to us. Let's take it. Let's not wait one more day to do this. Right? You got me to speak, and I'm speaking. Right? The mic is mine. Right? And this is the truth. So therefore, let's move this along. After we get the main job done, then we worry about what needs to happen, the security, the interoperability, inclusion, building trust, dealing with negative consequences. All that needs to happen. But all those things are actually is a dream unless and until we get the ball rolling. So in conclusion, let's learn from India, right? Listen to Nandan Nilekani when he says, well, India is going to be data rich because before it's going to be money rich. And let's use that. And there will be a day that once this ecosystem is in place, your data can earn you money. Somebody is going to take your data and use it for their purpose, which is also your purpose. And in that process, you monetize your data. Now, I heard X is also going to monetize content. It can happen. It will happen. You have to think out of the box and not be restricted to some AR and FR, some 30 projects or 500 projects. Right? So what we have built is certainly a tech win for Sri Lanka. But in isolation and on an ad hoc basis, how much impact can it have on improving the general quality of life of average Sri Lankans. Not much. So let us hope this event and others to follow will change that situation. Somavira will have a unique ID. He will be able to say, this is me. My EMT riding with him can get his biometrics. Immediately, we know this is Somavira. Somavira will give us consent, program consent. Yes, you can access my Digi wallet, Digi card, Digi whatever you want to call it, and immediately download all my medical history so that the team of doctors is ready to save my life. Think about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Harshit De Silva, for the insightful remarks. Now, please welcome our esteemed panel for the second panel discussion. Mr. Sanjeev, Joint Secretary, Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Dr. Shankar Raman, Chief of IIT, Madras, Incubator Pravartak Technologies Foundation. Mr. Sulfur Jeffrey, CEO of PICME. Mr. Ruvindu Pires, Managing Director and Head of the Stax Colombo office. Mr. Rajesh Nambiar, Chairperson, NASCOM, Chairman and Managing Director of Cognizant India. We warmly welcome you to the stage for a thought-provoking discussion on accelerating Sri Lanka's journey towards an inclusive digital future. The panel will be moderated by Mr. Sujeev Mudulige, Independent Director and former Managing Partner of PwC Sri Lanka.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. So I've been clearly told one task to be achieved. I need to do better than Pramod when it comes to time management. So gentlemen, it's 12:15. We have time till about 1 o'clock. So let's kick it off. So I think Harsha mentioned this. I was looking at the G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration. It says, is a set of shared digital systems that are secure and interoperable, built on open technologies to deliver equitable access to public and non-private services at a societal scale. So we're looking at some of the examples globally. I mean, there are a few examples that came through. They talked about Estonia's e-residency program, where it allows individuals worldwide to become digital citizens. India's other program, we all know about it. And in Denmark, Denmark's digital health record systems connects healthcare providers. That's what Harsha was talking about. It's already happening in some other countries. And in Sweden, Sweden has deployed blockchain technology to secure land ownership records, reducing fraud and providing citizens with transparent proof of ownership. And this is a big issue in Sri Lanka. And smart cities worldwide gives an example of Barcelona using DPI to enhance urban living by improving energy efficiency, traffic management, and public services. And of course, many countries using government as a platform on this. So interestingly, in Sri Lanka, for the benefit of the friends from India, I don't know whether you are aware that if you go and lodge your passport application, it's at 11 in the morning, by 3 in the afternoon, you can get a new passport. 4 hours. And we were one of the first countries in the world to achieve that kind of efficiency in this process. And we've rolled it out to some of the other sectors as well, but for some reason, we have not been able to take it forward. And I was told we've had a unique ID since 1970. And I was told in 1969, the East Germans, with their assistance, a unique ID was rolled out. That is almost 65 years ago. But even today, we are talking about a digital ID. And we've had this unique ID believe it or not, for 65 years. For 55 years, since 1970. And most of our parents have that ID that was issued in 1970. Okay, so to kick it off, may I start with Rajesh? I looked at one of your NASSCOM reports which talked about DPI could help India become an 8 trillion economy by 2030, according to a report compiled by NASSCOM. And it also says, according to the report, the successful adoption of such mature DPIs could help India achieve its goal of becoming a 1 trillion digital economy. It added that the economic value added by DPI could increase to between 2.9% to 4.2% of GDP by 2030. I mean, these are unbelievable numbers. Looks very, very exciting, very interesting time to be. Where do you think the opportunities are for the startup companies?
All right, thank you, Sujeev. I appreciate the question. Thank you for having me in this panel. So I want to thank the organizers for getting me here. No, interesting speech. I was very bit taken aback with the previous speech by Dr. De Silva as well. Quite interesting positioning of where Sri Lanka is in this journey. You know, I think I use a very simple analogy when you do DPI, whether you need ID first, you need a payment gateway first, and so on and so forth. I know that Pramod and the team had done a phenomenal job of positioning where these foundational DPI versus the stack that you add on top of it and the applications you write on it. Take an analogy of, just even if there's so much of similarity to physical infrastructure. I mean, you need to have good roads before you start driving cars on that or trucks on that and so on and so forth. And if you build a railroad versus a railroad is very proprietary. I mean, you can only have trains running on that. You can't ride a car on that and so on and so forth. So I think if you really look at these two, and you will find that there is so much of similarity. And then it's important for us to have those foundational infrastructure, digital infrastructure in place before anybody could do anything with it. And this is also true. I mean, we go back and you mentioned Sri Lanka had it, sort of some kind of an ID for a while. And if you go back and trace, even in the United States, some of the basic reason why I think they were fairly successful financially is also because of the Social Security, which was actually those numbers were issued for a different purpose. Eventually, it got repurposed to many other things. Even today, if you live in the US, for example, you got to have a Social Security number, whether you're a citizen or not, to do any kind of a transaction. So I think while when we did the UID, Aadhaar, and so on and so forth, and then started building this stack one on the other, right? I mean, of course, you have a good identity system, and then of course you build the payment gateway, and then of course now we have a commerce gateway, and you have several other foundational systems, and then look at adding more of those applications. And as many speakers have already said, unfortunately I came late, so I don't know what else has been said, but it is important to know that what makes it very, very attractive is not the foundational. Just building a road from here to Gaul will not help. But you got to have, after you build the road, you got to have this, use it for other purposes. So that is what was making it easier. I mean, there are several hundreds and hundreds of examples. Once we have this foundational DPI, then you're building true commerce on top of that, true banking systems on top of that, and trading, and healthcare systems, and then educational systems, and so on and so forth. That is what was making this so unique. Why? Because economy is driven by transactions, and then true business transactions on top of all of this. Just by building a public infrastructure, you're not going to do anything with the economy, right? So if you look at India's truly sort of a very, very accelerated economic growth came because it was led by digitization, if you may, right? It was led by technology and digitization, which made sure that some of the basic issues that you have if you do not have a digital ecosystem, that's been ironed out. I mean, small example would be we have this trading platform, one of the trading platform called Zerodha. Their competitive position with everybody else in the country was that they could open an account and do all of that using the digital public infrastructure. Truly connecting with, somebody talked about DigiLocker, ability for them to go in and get out without with that, of course, with the consent and so on and so forth, but very seamlessly. So the usability, how do you really build something on top of that, which truly leveraging all of the digital public infrastructure becomes so much more interesting for us to build those economic layer on top of that. And that is what was more important. Not, I mean, of course we need to have those layers. And you know, Dr. De Silva talked about having identity first. Fine, great, we should have the identity. But I think it's more than that. It's more than, you have to focus on the foundational DPI. And again, you can get very technical and say it shall be open, that, this and all that. But it is important to sort of think beyond those foundational layers, because as I mentioned before, just building a road is not going to be sufficient. You got to be thinking that what kind of cars and how are you going to use it? What are you going to use it for? What are the type of transportation that you're going to provide? So that is what is going to get more and more interesting. And the future of Sri Lanka will be determined by, do you really have a comprehensive view of what a digital Sri Lanka going to look like, not just because you're going to jump into doing an identity or jump into doing a payment system and so on and so forth. I think it is, collectively they become much more interesting. That's my view.
Thank you. Dr. Raman, I know yesterday you had the opportunity to meet up with some of the university students at NSBM Green University, which is up and coming new university. It's an amazing university because it's entirely government owned, but not a single rupee has been invested by the government, and you saw the facilities, which is world-class facilities there. And so this is the model that we want to sort of adopt, that the model that we should adopt moving forward, so that they don't become a burden on the government. What's your message to the university academics, because you come from a sort of a similar background? What should be the message, or what should the universities be doing to mold the mindsets of these young graduates who are coming out from these universities, so that they have that entrepreneurship and the risk-taking appetite when they come out from the universities?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to join this discussion. The very first, definitely there is a huge gap between industry and academics. Let's all accept it, because we have faced it. And you know, the gap, I'll give you an example of a gap. You publish a paper and you say that tomorrow is the deadline. It's okay, they will anyhow extend it, so I'll publish it next week. This is the academics part. Here's the industry. I give you a product, why didn't you give it to me yesterday? Okay? Now, how do you, there's a buffer which has to be filled by the universities. How does the university fill this buffer? One of the standing examples that we have done is the setting up of research park at IIT Madras, which has actually filled up this buffer between the industry and the academics. We were looking at professors who were interested in building products for industry, so they had to have an opportunity. So they went ahead and did it. Remember, this was done with minimal amount of government funding. So this is very, very important, because everywhere we see that the government has to put a lot of money in infrastructure. Not necessary, because IIT Madras took about 100 crores. Within 5 years, they generated 400 crores using loan, repaid this 400 crores, and now they are worth about 48,000 crores in 20 years. We believe it's slow. Okay, so we are looking at something known as 10x. So how does the university fill this gap? You have people who have been in the industry. You form a board of governors, okay, from the academics and the industry. Set up research parks that is independent of the university. Don't make them part of the university. Otherwise, the same vice chancellor who has been in academics will be controlling the same research. And again, it will become a project execution agency. You know, I get projects, I execute it, I publish papers. So there should be a different thinking that should come in, where you have more people from the industry should be called in to contribute. You know, it should be run like a not-for-profit company, and that helps a lot. IIT Madras is a not-for-profit, IIT Madras Research Park is a not-for-profit company, completely owned by IIT Madras. Only the chairman is the director of IIT Madras. So, and the rest of the board members are from the industry, and most of the times the decisions are taken by the people in the industry and academics working together, and the chairman just approves it. So if you can bring this sort of a model in every university, the reason why we say this is, either to assess the industry or a startup, you need technological help. And the technological help comes from the university. And your university should be capable of giving that technology help. Okay, if not there, go for a tie-up and get the help from them. So if this is the simple mantra, I mean, which we have used, and we have found it to be successful.
Thank you. Rovind, if I come to you, I think a message to you, to the guys at SLASCOM, sort of hint to say the need for you guys to get involved with the university ecosystem here and then to drive the content, drive the outputs and so on. So last year, Ravindu, in India, I was just running through 26,522 startup registration, even though when there was a global funding slowdown. Altogether, 92,000 startups as of February 2023. I saw in Dr. Varma's presentation as well.
Now it is 1,25,000.
There you are, 125,000. Ravindu, you've been involved in this space for a long period of time, former chairman of SLASCOM. What do you think, taking some of the points which Harsha touched on as well, and also the Honorable Minister in the morning, what do you think the Sri Lankan government needs to do to get this ecosystem going, to get the incubation space energized?
Right. Thanks. Great to be here. And loaded question. I think if you take the essence of it, really, in startups, fundamentals of startup success, and no one better than Sophie here to kind of talk through that. But as an investor on the side who hasn't done that great in angel investing, but attempted to kind of be part of the ecosystem, one of the first things is you need to fail fast, fail cheap, right? And in that, speed is everything. And I think to Harsha's point, we just need to get on with it, right? So I think whatever the initiatives, whatever the government's doing, we need to kind of prioritize, pick certain things, and just make movement, right? That inertia is killing us right now. So I think one of the first things I think all of us, and I'm not just, ultimately government is a reflection of all of us as citizens, right? I think you get the government you deserve as a citizenry, and I think I look in the mirror myself and say, hey, am I demanding enough? As a citizen, have we demanded enough? And I think that's to all of us to really kind of take a call and say, listen, be a lot more demanding and get action going. One of the other key attributes, I think, for successful startups, and I think this is where potentially working with India can be really opportunistic for us, is our biggest issue is our market size, right? And context and scale have really prevented us. So for bulk of the startups, when they kind of think about growing, it becomes almost not investable because the outcome or the scale that you're really kind of planning for doesn't warrant to really kind of go through the multiple rounds. Traditionally, if you look at some of the big successes we've had, right? The top two companies, I would argue, from a services perspective, Virtusa, from a product perspective, Sanjay Virwardhan and WSO2, that whole team. I mean, there's a whole bunch of others. Traditionally, even for me growing up, our kind of go-to reference point and market of choice has been the Western world. We grew up in that narrative, right? I think it's really time for us to now wake up and say, hey, the new narrative is right next door to us. It's a phenomenal time to be alive and to be in the startup ecosystem in Sri Lanka. And I think the biggest opportunity for me, while there's a bunch of other DPI and other stuff that the government's working on, they need to get through the stuff, I'm looking at things that we can probably do on our own, from a more private sector perspective between NASCOM, SLASCOM, all of us through our connections. I know the India-Sri Lanka Friendly Society has been doing this. How can we build a collaborative infrastructure, right? Are there things that we can do that really kind of bring the top 100 innovators of both countries together and really get them to collaborate and really create an emotional connect? Because when you do that, I think the frame of reference and what people think of as a market to sell into, and if that ends up becoming India, and I must say, I mean, I've spoken to probably about 20 startups in the last 3 months. Just like kind of every week I catch up 3 people. No one is thinking of India as a market or a place to go sell into, right? If we can start having, like Dambro has done, like Sparsilon has gone into India and really kind of started to make some early success from a digital front, if you start doing that, I think that really will kind of unlock a lot of the stuff. And India's already kind of got a lot of that together, right? While Sri Lanka gets its own DPI together, I think from an IT perspective, if we can start thinking about how do we leverage the unlock already happening in India and to collaborate, do JVs, do partnerships, and be part of that growth, I think that will be a great place to kind of kickstart the thing.
In addition, maybe also some of the Sri Lankan corporates tying up with Reliance to product like Maliban, Elephant House, Amante from MA. So there's a lot of success stories. Agree with you. Great point. Sanjeev, if I come over to you, I mean, India is one of the most sought after destinations for startups in the world, 2022. And I looked at some of the numbers. It's mind-boggling numbers which comes out. How have the Indian startups benefited from this whole DPI space sort of taking off in India?
Thank you, Sujiva. Before I speak further on this issue, I will like to take you to the journey of Startup India, how it started. That is very important for any country which wants to have a good startup ecosystem. And this is, you can see by the statistics itself that Startup India started in 2016. Now we are 1,25,000 startups employing almost 13 lakh people. And the best of thing is that it has been very inclusive and diversity sensitive. Almost 50% of the districts have startups. That means it has percolated to tier 2, tier 3 cities. The startups are not focused only in big metros like Bangalore, Hyderabad, NCR, Mumbai, but even in small villages, startups are blossoming. And slowly and steadily, India has become the third biggest startup ecosystem. We are third in the terms of unicorns after US and China. And I think soon we will become the best startup ecosystem. And for this, government policies have been very, very important. And personally, I feel it is the inspirational leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister who continuously kept talking that it is okay to start a startup even at the cost of failure. And one has to become employment giver rather than job seeker. The change of mindset was the most important thing. And he was able to do that by giving n number of examples. I don't know what actual conditions exist in Sri Lanka, but in India, the ideal thing was to go for salary, government jobs. Nobody wanted to start a startup, and in fact, a young adult, if asked their parents that they want to start a startup, they were scolded and they were said, no, this will not work. But now questions have changed. If a young entrepreneur asks his parents or his teachers that he wants to start up, then the questions are very different. From where you will get the funding? What is your idea? What do you do if funds dry up? So the entire mindset was changed. And with this change of mindset, we had 19 action points under 3 broad categories to boost the startup ecosystem. The first being hand-holding and simplification, and probably taking cue from Sri Lanka's passport system that you give in 4 hours. We don't claim to do it in 4 hours, but in India, we are giving startup recognition within a day based on voluntary certification, whereas earlier the thing was that everything was to be attested by gazetted officers, and trust has been brought in the system. So a lot of simplification has been done. Almost 57 central acts have been changed. Many income tax benefits have been given. In fact, a lot of stakeholder consultation was done to understand what are the issues which affect a startup. And though not all the concerns have been addressed because it is an ongoing process, there are still many issues which have to be tackled. But we did a lot of simplification. And similarly, we created a bouquet of funds, because when a startup starts, it needs to have a seed fund for prototyping, for proof of concept, or simply for selling also. So we had seed fund, which we distributed through incubators. One of our best incubator is sitting here in the panel itself. And in fact, we have learning from our own experience. I will later on also share with you how government has become proactive. That we came to understand that many of the incubators are themselves not very trained to be a good incubator or accelerator. So we are coming out with a plan where we will be taking help of IIT Chennai Incubation Center to train our incubators so that it is not only the product development. An incubator should have knowledge of entire ecosystem. And then after seed fund, we have a fund of 10,000 crores through SIDBI, which has already garnered 75,000 crores through alternative investment fund. That is for equity investment in scaling up of the startups. And then...
Sorry, just to clarify, you said 10,000 crore startup capital.
10,000 crore has been given to SIDBI to create a fund of fund where they consist only 15% of the government support, rest will be coming from the private. And as on date, 75,000 crores have been distributed through this fund of SIDBI. And at the last stage, even after a startup forms, they have need for debt. For that, we have started a credit guarantee scheme, which we will be sharing the credit risk of the banks. And the third and most important part of the government policy for a startup was mentorship, relationship with academia, and we created a portal called Marg, where we invite all the big names in the startup ecosystem to come and give sessions to the future entrepreneurs and to solve their problems. And as I was suggesting that government is very proactive in India, that 2 months back, we had a unicorn summit where we called all unicorns of India to understand their problems. Though we will take times to solve their problems, but what we could get it, that they were ready to be mentors. And now we will be coming out with a very big program because people want to listen to already successful entrepreneurs. Somebody like Zerodha, Nikhil Kamath, people will come and hear him out. So this is how the startup ecosystem was developed. And startup and DPI are integral to each other. And this fits into our scheme of things. We have also created a startup ecosystem registry where we have registered all the startups and future entrepreneurs who want to be startups, venture capitalists, unicorns, sunicorns, whatever cons you keep on calling them, meaning thereby that all the components, bank, insurance companies, we have put in one platform. And this is the DPI, the biggest, I can say the biggest offer to the world, as Verma sir is here. I am also looking after ONDC. Open Network for Digital Commerce in DPI is the biggest boon for the startups. I will give you an example. I come from a very, very remote village of Bihar. Bodh Gaya, many of you would be knowing. There we have a rice called Katarni. That is very, very, it is better than Basmati. But there is no market for that. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that through ONDC, somebody in Delhi can buy the products. So DPI has provided the launch pad for the startups where network like ONDC will provide them the facilities through which it is not important to make a product. What is important to commercialize and sell them and make profit. Then profit of one entrepreneur makes 100 entrepreneurs follow to them. And similarly, we have a government e-marketplace. In India,
Sanjeev,
government...
Can we take it up in the next round?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad a lot of lessons to be learned, and I'm glad that Minister Herat and also Secretary Dharmasri is still here. A lot to be learned from the Indian system, how the ecosystem works, and how the startups have been supported by a government initiative, and how that space has been encouraged and taken forward. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you very much. Zulfi, I'm coming to you last. Sorry about that. So you run one of the largest companies here in this space. How do you see Sri Lanka without sort of reinventing the wheel? How can we replicate India's digital stack? It's already available out there. It has been tried and tested. What is it that we can do so that there could be some quick results?
Sure. So I'll just share you two personal stories, right? When I was very young, you can figure out what my age is now. I was doing my undergrad, a part of my undergrad in India, in Bombay, in Mumbai. And then, while I was there, I saw one of the first startups raising $1 million. Now, at that time, $1 million was very big. This is just before Y2K, 1999. The whole India was talking about it. India just tasted the first startup kind of. I don't think India even called it startup, right? It was just a company, some young folks, actually my senior at that time, that raised $1 million. Now, in the campus, everyone was excited. I was excited, right? I didn't even finish my degree. I came back to Sri Lanka to start a company. Now, that's the era of computers, software services era, right? Where we had Infosys and, Cognizant and all these companies evolving in India, and of course we had Virtusa in Colombo coming off. So I was also taken up by that, started my own company here, very young, but little did I know that Sri Lanka didn't have capacity, right? So anyway, that was a story, right? The second thing is, I think the connections that we have helps the Sri Lankan ecosystem, just to answer that question. The second experience I want to bring up is, I'm a constant visitor to India, because we do a lot of, as a company as well, we do a lot of work with some of the Indian folks. We have suppliers that some of the Indian, we work with Indian companies. Now, I took one of the last flights before COVID from India to Sri Lanka, right? When I went to India, I think a lot of Sri Lankans will relate to this. Drivers would say, "Bye, pay me cash," right? I can see a bit of smiles here now. It was a problem, right? And 2 years later, when I went, obviously as a Sri Lankan, I had to, go change my dollars and get Indian rupees. And I was willing to offer him rupees or in cash. And this guy tells me, "Bye, can you pay me UPI?" Right? Now, this is the change that has happened, right? And today, if you go to Bangalore or Mumbai, lot of the taxi drivers don't, their first preference is UPI and not cash, right? So that's the change that has happened in India, amongst many cities in India. So that's just to give you some of the real, my personal stories. But obviously, just to talk about, what I've seen, of course, Aadhaar being a big one, UPI, these two foundational infrastructure technologies have just sort of evolved India. I'm not a big fan of ONDC, right? But let's talk about that later. But I think the High Commissioner talked about magic, right? I think what these infrastructures have created is magical experiences to the citizens of India, right? In fact, when I go there, I become like an alien now, right? Because I can't transact in India, right? So maybe something the Indian High Commission should work on. But that is becoming a problem for Sri Lankans when we go there. But I think the real magic is now being delivered to the citizens of India, and I think we should quickly, I think the foundation piece is for me the Aadhaar. I think there will be a lot more startups that will come out of Sri Lanka, right? I think our numbers will evolve. I think, just take an example. We only have 2 fintech companies, right? 2 fintech companies run by 2 large telcos. The startups can't work with the fintechs, right? Because we have so much of regulations, right? So we need the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the government of Sri Lanka just open things up for us so that there'll be more entrepreneurs coming up with ideas and building technologies for the people of Sri Lanka, right? I envy the wealth the Indian startups are making, right? Zodora, Bhavesh, everyone are making them, I mean, they're creating companies in a blink of an eye now, right? So that's the kind of opportunities that, India is creating. And I think we need to quickly jump into the bandwagon or else it'll be too late.
Thank you. I just want to touch on one thing which the Honorable Minister as well as Dharmasri touched on. See, when we had the fuel crisis 2 years ago, we introduced this QR code. And then one of the hot topics that is being discussed today is how do we enhance the tax net. The perception is that we have too many people who are not within the tax net. So, I mean, I had a simple suggestion. See, during that period, everyone who wanted to pump petrol or diesel had to use this QR code. In Sri Lanka, the tax threshold starts at 100,000 rupees. If a litre of petrol or diesel is 400 rupees, anyone who pumps 100 litres, that means has spent 40,000 on fuel. So simple. Just get hold of the QR details. Who is spending 40% of their, anyone who is spending 40% of their income on fuel, surely is earning 100,000 or above. You can't be otherwise spending 40% on fuel. You've got the entire population roped in, and government has the names, the details, the ID numbers, the addresses, they have all the details. And I just can't understand why the government, every minister is saying, look, there's huge amount of people out there not paying taxes. We already have the details with us. It's all about the will. It's all about the will. Rajesh, coming back to you. See, this digital transformation comes along with so much of risks. I mean, we talked about privacy, we talked about, making the security of all these data and so on. So there's a need to make sure that the ecosystem is safe and we build trust. I think this was talked about. With your experience, what would you tell the stakeholders here on your DPI roadmap? What would be 2 or 3 really important things to build this trust so that people embrace this?
No, that's a very, very important point, and I think even the previous panel talked about why trust becomes sort of central to everything. Because the moment you have centralized data, there is obviously whether there's misuse or not, there is always a concern that where is this data really going to go, and is my personal data safe and all of that. So I think from a government point of view, there is a lot more needed to ensure that to the public that the data is safe, and then you go extra mile. I mean, nobody can guarantee 100% safety on any data. So we all know that the strictest of all the firewalls and everything can certainly be broken at some point in time. So it is important for us to make sure that there's a solid trust that gets created by ensuring that we are doing everything and ensuring that data is not misused. So that's from a very technical point of view how we do this. But if you really look at the roadmap, I think while there will be a lot can be said about what we need to do around, they have to be interoperable, and you need to create all those, technology related, the API should be right, and you have to sort of engage with them, all of that. But if you really take a little different view of this, I think it's, when you create something like this, it has to be around social inclusion, financial inclusion. How do you make sure that whatever you're building, it doesn't really serve the top 10% of the population or the citizenship? It has to be almost 95% or whatever it is. It'll be great if you could do 100%. But that is what was, I think, if you go back to look at India's success in the DPI, if at all we can call it that way, it was primarily driven by the fact that it was originally designed to ensure that the poorest of the poor actually get paid through those UID and ability for them to receive that money without really getting siphoned off by somebody else on the passage. So I think this social inclusion, making sure that you're building something for all of Sri Lanka, not just for a society or a section of Sri Lanka, without any sort of agenda that, you're going to, favor a part of this or part of that, and ability for you to drive that down. So that, I believe, is one key aspect of when you sort of build something like DPI for Lanka. I think that becomes extremely important. The other thing which I'll say, and then I'll stop, is I think keeping track of this ecosystem that you'll build with this, and I mentioned that before as well. I think we can get very myopical by getting into one or the other part of it. I mean, we can get very focused on a certain aspect of this whole digital public goods, public infrastructure, right? Whether, as I mentioned before, it could be ID, it could be payments gateway, could be commerce, and which you don't like in some sense. All of that is okay. But can you keep the broader ecosystem in mind and build something which everybody can jump into? In the sense, if you are an education provider, for example, we have built something in India called Swayam, and I'm sure, that has been very successful in its own way, and it uses the DPI. So I think, as I mentioned before, the DPI is more it has to be seen as a sort of invisible layer, if at all, right? And then everything which you're going to be seeing is what benefits the larger citizenship, if you may, right? And that could be around healthcare, it could be around education, it could be around financial inclusion, it could be around, banks. So those ecosystem, if you're not careful, we will miss that. And then as I think a few of the previous speakers in the sessions before also mentioned, saying that is what is actually the key of what, that is what is going to drive the economic growth, and not the foundation layer. They're important. Without the foundation layer, you can't do any of that. But if you don't build those broader ecosystem around all of this, you will miss the point. You will end up having a phenomenally good ID system, but then, if you have not really utilized that, if you have not have plans to sort of build it in while building the ID system, saying that here is how I'm going to use this ID system to do A, B, C, and D, and sort of look at it, design it with a much broader way, then you will miss the point.
Thanks. Shaka, want you just to get your experience on how do you ensure that you have the right linkages with industry, with people like the NASCOM, and then the rest of the tech industry to other industries and so on. From an academic perspective, what would you tell our university academics here, what needs to be done to make sure that these linkages are strong, vibrant, and very focused?
So there are two kinds of problems that we look at. One is the fundamental research that people do, and that's a separate agenda for academicians which they can carry on. But there are thousands of problems in industry, okay? And the problems are even bound. I mean, I can give you one example of a physically challenged person once said that he is not able to stand up during the national anthem. And immediately the startup started with the concept of standing wheelchair. And this was just one concept where it was only a societal cause. And this startup is now doing very well. Now, this was observed by a professor, okay? And he got that startup up. Now, this is where the professors are open their minds and then looking at. Now comes the company's problem. We had to solve some problem from one of the top multinational companies where they had a product which was not very accurate. And they said, can you do something about it, because we have to sell it in the market. So this is where we went back to the academicians and said that, look, here's a fantastic research problem from the industry. Why don't you solve it? And once they solved it, they got a patent, and this got incorporated in the product, and the company made a lot of money out of it while the professor. So this kind of vacuum that is existing today must be filled in with these kind of problems. So what we do is we look out for companies. In fact, IITM Pravartak, we take projects from the companies, scout for it, and then we give it to the startups. And if the startups land up with the solution, you go back to the academics, fill up the gap, because the startups will not know how to work with the industry. And the academicians do not know how to go with the industry, and the industry does not know how to work with the academicians. The other part is also there. So this is the buffer that we fill. So if there is a technical problem, we go back to the university. If there's a business problem, we again come back to the industry. So this kind of zigzag fashion, we were able to address many of the problems with the industry, and the R&Ds, the talent of the people increased. I mean, both at the industry, now the industry people know how to interact with the academicians. So this is very, very important for an incubator, because I can't just give a space, I can't give some money, and I'll just go, you find out some VC, you go and find out the market. This is not going to work. Or even if it is done independently, also it will not work. There should be some sort of a caretaker who looks at the startup, okay, where is your pain point, review them, okay, review them for financials. If they are not doing well, ask them to go to the customers, okay, and tell them, I will not get you a customer, you have to go and find a customer. Those are the hard work that is needed by the startup. You can't leave them high and dry and then say that, okay, you are not building up anything. So this is exactly what we do.
Thanks. Ravindu, I saw a news item today saying elections are going to be held in 6 months' time. What are 2 things that you would like to see in the next 6 months? April to September, 6 months. What would you like to see in the DPI space?
Before the elections.
Before the elections.
Well, you and I both know the answer. Unfortunately, all the focus is not going to be on that. But no, I think there's a big opportunity, honestly. One of the first things I would urge all of us and friends in government, everyone, is to kind of really not reinvent the wheel, right? We've all been actively involved. I see a lot of friendly faces. You know, a simple example, the export strategy, I think that one of the governments earlier kind of was part of. A good 2 years was spent going into a lot of details. Everything that needs to get done is already in place, right? I think there's a lot of analysis, paralysis, and I think fundamentally what happens is, because it's not built in my home, I'm not going to do it mentality. If anything, the last year is a good reminder to all of us, when you go down, everyone goes down, irrespective of where you're from, right? So I think to keep that in mind, really kind of build those foundational stuff. I think, as was said earlier, use the time. Time is of essence. Kind of get some of these things on par, just momentum, pick up 1 or 2 things that really matter and get that in place. See what it is.
Thank you. Sanjeev, I think a common theme that is coming out is the inclusiveness on this, the whole DPI space. And I think 3 areas that would mostly get impacted is education, health, and agri. I think those are 3 areas which can have a huge impact, on society as a whole. You did mention a nice example on your own village in the agri space. Anything on the healthcare space you want to share with us? What's happening in India at the moment?
Yeah, but with your permission, I will make a small request and I will finish everything within a minute.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
No, because I don't want to be between lunch and the audience, and we have already exceeded the time. I just met Mr. Niresh and Sasikala. Are you here? From Hatch Incubators, part of the audience. And I will just like to bring to your notice that last week we had a mega event called Startup Mahakumbh, where more than 50,000 participants were there and speakers from all over world came, and Honorable PM graced the occasion. I will request any one of you who is interested in coming for the next time Startup Mahakumbh, we will provide all kind of facilitation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And coming back to startups, sir, we are agnostic to the sectors. We are promoting each and every aspect of sector, and health undoubtedly is one of our best sector in which cutting edge research is going on. In fact, we are in the process of formulating a deep tech policy where we will be putting almost 1 lakh crores for the support to startups, and the main focus will be on AI on health. We have seen that health, diseases, cancer and all, by prediction of AI can be treated very well. So AI, machine learning, and new equipment, medical equipment and devices. We were importing almost everything. Now I am very happy and proud to say that in India, most of the medical equipments are being made, even CAT scan and all machines are being made. So it is our focus area. Thank you. And I think I have not exceeded the time this
Thank you. Jeffrey, I want to finish the session with you. I saw in 2023 that there was in one of the parliamentary sectoral committee discussions, that they were discussing how to tax the gig economy, the digital economy, and so on. What is it that Sri Lanka can learn from the regulation that's already there in India when it comes to fintech and all other related areas?
Yeah, I was just seated behind Minister Harsha as well. I think Sri Lanka has essentially missed an important element of taxation, right? I think that's been a big problem for the startups. Of course, we as IT companies or software companies, we were living a tax-free life for about a good 20 years. And when this tax came in, everyone was caught by surprise. Yes, we brought it up 5 years ago to all the departments saying this is going to be a problem and there's clearly a disadvantage for local startups. And I think India has done a great job. In 2015, they brought the equalization tax, sort of giving an even playing ground for both the Indian startups and the foreign digital companies, right? Foreign multinational companies. So I think there's a lot to learn for us, right? I think in that terms, we are 7-8 years behind, and we just have to look over to India and say, what did India do with regard to taxation? But there's many more, right? There's problems with consumer rights, right? I have to say, I don't think the consumer rights have even thought about the digital products that have been given to Sri Lankans here over the internet, right? So there are many problems that we need to quickly address if we are going to see the digital economy to take off, right? And I think the solution is right across the ocean. We just have to look at what India has done and perhaps just replicate it here, and we'll be on our way. So 2 things for me, as part of the startup ecosystem, we need our public services opened up. We need, the Aadhaar kind of models ready. We need our public sectors opened up so that we can consume them through digitally. And second, being creating a level playing field for the local startups so that the next generation can benefit out of the digital ecosystem. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So let me close the session echoing some of the sentiments expressed by High Commissioner Jha. I mean, DPI is here, DPI is tomorrow, and DPI is the future. So let's embrace it, let's get it done, let's support the government in its initiatives. They have a lot on their plate, and hopefully we can get at least a few things done. A few quick wins will give the momentum that we are looking for. Thank you, everyone. And everyone is invited to join for lunch. Thank you.